Shalom, Brukaba. Welcome. I am joined again today with Israel Horowitz. Great to have you on. Great to talk about this. How you doing?
Thank you. Good, good. Thank you for having me. Um, I enjoy doing these. I think they're informative. We get to talk about things we can agree on, so that's always good. Um, Ironically, I had a conversation with an Orthodox rabbi yesterday, who I did have a conversation with him previously, and it was pretty civil. So I'll be posting that on Sunday. But what I wanted to talk to you about was just the fact that the Talmud is out of control, man. Because like, uh, this stuff. It's just, it comes down to the question of like, who is God, and what does He really say? And
Right.
something that I think really clarifies their position, and I think we can go with this, is a statement in Baba Batra 12a, where the rabbis say that a wise man is greater than a prophet, obviously referring to the wise rabbis,
Hmm.
are greater than prophets. And I think that that's really where they originated this idea that we're in a new stage, a new phase. The way they phrase it, prophecy is gone. There is no such thing as prophecy. Prophecy is unachievable. And the new prophecy, the new authority, is the rabbis, is people who can, with their never ending analysis and theorizing, they can pretty much reason their ways to the correct conclusions that God wants us to have. Instead of us actually just reading the Word of God and being able to talk about it ourselves. And I mean, for thousands of years, they've been pushing this form of interpretation on people when the Israelites aren't even a united people in the land of Israel. We're literally just an exiled people all over the world. And for me to have to follow any form of consensus, um, when I'm following the Word of God, I mean, there's actually no consequence to me following my own understanding of the Torah, except for being thrown out of the Orthodox community. And that's not necessarily a consequence if you can't even be part of a community when you question basic things and try to have your own understanding.
It's crazy. The ironic part about the sages comment there is they obviously use that to establish their own authority to create tradition. But there's that whole passage, I don't remember which tractate it is right now off the top of my head, but it talks about how every generation has a person in it that is uh worthy to accept the divine spirit, accept the Shekinah and understand and get the divine voice for them. So they're all able to become prophets, so they kind of like elevate prophethood, and yet at the same time they're elevating the sages. So that it's like a catch 22. Do you elevate the sages to then give them authority, or are you elevating the prophets because you need some legitimacy to your statements? That just seems like a contradiction to me.
For sure. But again, at the end of the day, they're claiming that prophecy is obsolete and it's
Right.
impossible to achieve prophecy, which, by the way, limits every single person post destruction of the second temple. And it puts them on this waiting game where it's now a question of, when does the Messiah come? When does the third temple come? And until then, we're stuck in limbo pretty much. And that's how they view it, which means we're not capable of progressing at this point in time because we don't have a prophet like Moses. We don't have clarity on all the laws. Therefore, through further confusion of the rabbis, we're somehow going to achieve clarity. I mean,
Right.
that's counterintuitive. You can't achieve clarity by creating more confusion. Um, we have to try to return to the fundamental principles, to the building blocks of our faith, and then we can work from there. And so, ultimately, what can we agree on for sure, and then what are the doubtful cases? And you'll find that the cases of doubt are far less frequent than the cases of clarity. And really, the things that are clear are what matter the most. Who is
Right.
God? What is His creation? What does He expect from us? What are the Ten Commandments? How can we live in a functional life, in a functional world? That's what God wants from us. Everything else, I mean, yeah, it matters, but way less.
Yeah. Know that you're made in the image of God, to love God and love your neighbor, and do not oppress the foreigners. Like, that's the foundation of all Torah. So if you
Mm,
have those, you have what God really needs you to have the kind of heart condition you need to live in a just, well-adjusted society that everyone cares for one another. If you love yourself and you love your neighbor, you have peace. It's
Amen.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love your point about loving the stranger, because that's actually the opposite of what we see in Judaism. There's an elitism that's not from the Torah; it's from the
Mm,
Talmud, where the Talmud, focuses on ideas like chosenness and exclusivity to
right.
rule out connection to the rest of humanity, and that's obviously not good. That's obviously destructive. So again, just to kind of show what they think about prophecy. So on in the same tractate Baba Batra 12b, it says, from the day that the temple was destroyed, prophecy was taken and given to insane people and babies. so, so essentially, prophecy is a joke, right? Like, and
Hmm.
and that just means that we can never make progress, because how are we ever supposed to achieve the word of God if we it's for insane people and babies? I mean, that's why, they got a place in the asylum for you if you think you heard God, right? So, um, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely unfortunate.
And you see that classism with the Haaretz, where it's
Hmm.
the people of the land, and they are like, there's the one statement, again, I don't remember. It's been a bit since I've read massive portions of the Talmud, just because I've been going down the Hadith, just focusing on Islam for a couple of months.
Hmm.
Um, there's a passage that talks about how one of the rabbis really, really, really hates those people so much that if you were to give your daughter to one of them, the daughter is going to be like eaten by ravenous wolves. And also it's like better to go out and like literally slay those people, but those people are just anyone who doesn't study Torah or like Gentiles.
Hmm.
That's a wild statement of, well, it goes from the Bible of do not oppress a foreigner, love those around you, take care of your community, to kill those who are not serious about their Judaism.
Can you repeat that again? It says to slay who?
The unbelievers, I'm pretty sure I have it in
Mm.
here, but I can double check. Um, 'Cause I'm pretty sure I had that in the apostasy law section because a lot of
Mm.
Islam comes from the
Right.
Talmud. But there's this passage where one of the rabbis is talking about how it would be better for the people of the land to be killed. Like he talks about how he's talking to his students, and his students are like, hey, don't talk that badly about them. And he's like, I'm gonna go and like kill them. And then he's like, well, at least say that you're gonna strangle them because strangling is like a nicer form of death. And he's like, no, I'm gonna go like hack and slash them.
Oh my
I was like,
God.
what in the
Oh my
world is
God.
happening?
Yeah, I mean, it would be comical if these people weren't idolized as religious leaders and great men, because now you have to somehow justify unspeakable, unjustifiable behavior. And that's what I
Right.
see over and over again, in the Jewish space, is that people are finding themselves in a position where they need to justify what can't be justified
Right.
to defend the honor of who? A rabbi? Uh, a culture norm? When we're talking about, if this is God's religion, the last thing you need to be worried about is, oh, what did this specific commentator say? Right?
Right.
And this is another great source that I don't know if you're familiar with. It's Tractate Sabbath. Um, what's this? 88. 88a. Sorry, I'm just trying to translate the Hebrew letters to English.
Shabbat
88a,
88.
right? It says that
Yeah.
when God was giving the Torah to Israel, he took Mount Sinai. So, of course, this is not in the
Oh,
Torah. It's just,
yes. Yeah.
right? He took Mount Sinai,
Yeah.
hung it over their
Yeah.
head like a barrel, and said, if you accept the Torah, good, but if not, I'm going to drop the mountain on you and kill all of you. Now,
Right.
ironically, I met a secular Jew who said that he was completely disinterested in Judaism once he heard that story, because he said, what kind of God puts a mountain over people's heads and says, you're forced to accept this? It doesn't seem at all like something consensual that people could understand why it's important. Now, what I told him immediately was, well, good thing to know, the Torah doesn't say that. Right. Of course, didn't make him become religious at all. He already found his excuse. But the point is, it doesn't help when you have terrible ideologies in Judaism that are nowhere to be found in the Torah. So God is hanging the mountain over their head, forcing them to accept the Torah. Now, the commentaries on the Gemara, so just to remember what happens when you enter into rabbinic thought. There is a commentary on the Torah called the Mishnah. There's a commentary on the Mishnah called the Gemara, the Talmud. Now you have commentators on the commentator on the commentator asking, well, if the Jews accepted the Torah, where they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do it, we will hear it, we accept, because that's what it says in the text. It says in the text that they accepted the Torah. If they accepted it willingly, then why does it say that God forced them to do it in the Talmud? And so the answer that they come up with, and this is amazing, and this is stated from the Maharal of Prague, who was like kind of a rationalist rabbi. It's stated by the Vilna Gaon, who was like a Talmudist rabbi and a mystic, and Rabbi Tzadok of Lublin, who was like a Hasidic rabbi. So from all the sides of the rabbinic world, their answer is, at Sinai, they accepted the written Torah, right? And then God hung the mountain over their head regarding the oral Torah, right? So he said, the written Torah, listen, I get it. You guys can all accept that. But what about this insane oral Torah, right? This, at the threat of death, are you going to accept this oral Torah? But then on Purim time, which is in the book of Esther, where the Jews accept upon themselves to celebrate the holiday of Esther, where Esther saved the Jewish people by going to the king who was her husband. And they have a new holiday where it says everyone's supposed to give gifts to their friends and get drunk and dress up and all this stuff. Then they accepted the oral Torah with love and appreciation. Right. So, I mean, once the oral Torah shows that we can have hedonism and, free love and get drunk. And one of the things it says in the Talmud in Megillah regarding Purim is that you should get so drunk that you don't know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman, right? So Mordechai is the hero. He's the one who saves the day. And Haman is the villain who wants to kill the entire Jewish people. But the idea is you should get so deep into the sea of subjectivity and rabbinical circular thinking that you don't know the difference between the hero and the villain. You don't know the difference between blessing and curse. And that's really the Talmudic ideology, which is, look, you would only accept this at the threat of death, but once we introduce hedonism into the picture and this idea that you can just have endless mental masturbation and go in circles and in your thought patterns, okay, now we'll accept it with love. And now we love this thing that was completely absent from Torah life, from Israel for 1,500 years, from the time of Moses to the time of the Talmud. It doesn't exist. Nowhere mentioned in the Torah, nowhere mentioned in the Tanakh. Suddenly, it's time for oral Torah time. And now we're going to pretend like this oral Torah actually originated from Sinai. And that's really the topic of what we're discussing, which is that it's an absurd claim to say that books written down 1,500 plus years after Moses that are written in the names of individual rabbis having debates, the oral Torah is not conclusions. It's debates. It's debates between rabbis about very niche, removed subjects from the Torah. Their subjective opinions have somehow become the gospel of Judaism and what is considered to be the word of God and binding law based off of a system of rabbis and rulings and consensus between rabbinic opinions. When Israel is an exiled people, when this system has never been implemented on an actual nation in an actual land, it has zero success rate because it was never actually implemented. It was always under the Romans, under the Europeans, under the Muslims, under the Christians, right? We're always under the rule of another government, and we're just sitting here in our shuls and our synagogues talking about our grandiose ideas, but it's all theoretical, right? So if we're going to talk about a system of law that can actually be implemented, what's hilarious is they claim that the oral Torah is the system of law that could be implemented. But when you look at the oral Torah, all it is a bunch of confused, muddled ideas that are easily debatable, and many of them are actually terrible. So I don't know if you saw the interview I did with Ash, which was
I saw most of it. I think I saw all of it. But
yeah, so that was a crazy one. And he brought up something I never heard, which is the rabbis say if you want to know whether a girl is a virgin or not, sit her on top of a wine barrel, and if she's not a virgin, then that flappy vagina will carry the aroma of the wine through her open vagina, and you'll smell wine on her breath. So they would take young girls and sit them on wine barrels and see if they could smell the scent of wine. And then if they could smell wine on their breath, then that means that they're not virgins. So yeah, that's an that's an actual it's an actual quote, right? So like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not
Oh,
a serious dialogue. They're maintaining insane things. As you pointed out, there's crossover between the Talmud and the Hadith coming into the 3-year-old conversation, and you're like, how did we get here, right? Because it's definitely not the Torah's conversation. It's definitely not the message that we're getting from God Himself. And so if we're here to defend the Bible, we need to defend the actual position of the Bible, not the rabbinic position of the Bible. Right? So they say the Talmud is incels of the ancient world. Reddit for rabbis. That's what it
yeah.
is, right? It is. It's really just men who actually
Mm.
speak very often of like their distaste for women. I saw a question in the Gemara, the Talmud, saying like, if you already fulfilled, be fruitful and multiply. Um, and apparently, if you have a son and a daughter, you fulfilled, be fruitful and multiply. Don't ask why. As far as I understand, be fruitful and multiply doesn't have like an expiration date.
And yeah, there's
Right.
no
There's no
limit to
end.
it.
The whole idea is you
Right.
keep going, right? But they say a son and a daughter, you fulfilled, be fruitful and multiply. So if you have a son and a daughter with a woman, should you just quit women altogether? Like, just leave your wife. Why do you need women anymore, right? So I mean, again,
Yeah.
that's
That's wild. Yeah,
yeah.
you brought up so many points back to back to back. Okay. So Avodah Zorah 2A and B, all or 2A and 2B also has the Mount Sinai above the Jews, but it
Mm.
also has every single element of Islamic Judgment Day and eschatology is in that section. So if you want to like read what Muslims believe and then read that section, it's like obviously where they're stealing it from. It's pretty funny. But beyond that, like you have the repeating. So it's not just like a one-off in the Talmud. There's multiple sections. I think it's also in the Midrash where God does pick up and literally threaten the Jews with annihilation with that. And instead of it being a blessing to them that will bring them into life, now it's like a curse, which is kind of crazy. And then also, I found what I was talking about with the prophecy thing in Sota 48b 6 through 8, so paragraphs 6 through 8. It talks about how if there's one person in every generation that is worthy of the divine voice, who could become a prophet, but the generation themselves also has to become worthy. So it's like the idea of when the Messiah will come back onto you. And it's like, oh, well, every generation is there. And it's like, then they obviously point to like Geliel and say, oh, well, he's obviously the one that was worthy, but his generation wasn't. So they have this weird like back and forth with what they're actually considering prophecy, what's not prophecy. The drunken one is really funny for Purim. Uh, I made a video recently on the golden calf and how it's most likely an idol of Hathor and maybe Ipis, her son, who's also the god of war. So Hathor, one of her festivals that just so happened to be celebrated the highest during the exile time period or the Exodus time period. So for the early date of the Exodus, the 1446 Exodus, it just so happens to be that pharaoh and that pharaohs are the ones who are practicing a like drunken orgy to Hathor the most. So they do this festival of drunkenness where everyone gets so drunk that they pass out, and that's the whole point of it, is that you literally drink until you pass out while having naked ladies dance for you. And then you have intercourse in the torchlit rooms. It's pretty evil, wild, and obviously what the Jews or the Israelites are doing in Mount Sinai, like at the base of Mount Sinai. Whenever Moses comes down, he's super angry about it. But the idea that you would take something so evil that God disliked, and then you would basically do it again to celebrate another festival that's man-made, just that seems wild to me. That's crazy.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it just turns into that kind of day because it's really just not God's holiday. And it's actually the first time in Jewish history, and it's actually in the Tanakh, where the Jews are kind of creating their own holidays, right? They're creating
Right.
their own things going on. And I mean, that's where it starts. And of course, when they read the Megillah, which is the book of Esther, on Purim, they say, "Blessed are you, God, who commanded us to do this," thereby
Yeah.
calling the rabbis God. because the rabbis are the ones who commanded them to do it. And
Yeah.
what does it really mean? It means we are our own God. Whether
Mm.
whether we create the God and then bow down to the creations of our own hands, or we create the logic and we bow down to our own logic, and we tell everyone that they're subject to our logic and our ideas, you're really just making yourself a god at that point. And how is that different than the temptation with the snake telling Eve you can be like God? Right? It is the fundamental flaw of mankind. And of course, the pharaohs and the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans, they thrived off of this idea. We are the gods. We are immortal. We are all these things, right? Complete delusional idiots, like the pharaohs and their tombs, like with all their gold, and it's literally just their bones and their gold, right? All this stupidity, right? And then it kind of just circles back in Jewish theology when that's actually not the Torah's theology. And again, I
Mm.
just find that all the holes that people can poke in Judaism as a religion don't exist in the Torah. Case in
Right.
point, as you said, love of the foreigner, love of the stranger, acceptance of the stranger. All the conversations about the land of Israel and who has a right to live there and all these things. In the Torah's view, it has absolutely nothing to do with blood. The blood descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob enter the land and inherit it, but there is an open door policy for people that want to live there, and they're supposed to be treated the same. And the only law that exists is the Torah law, and everything
Right.
else is not the law. In fact, you don't need a king, you don't need a government. The Torah is the governing law, and that's really how Israel could exist. And even if there was a king, the job of a king is to be as humble as a human could possibly be, to write himself a copy of the Torah and read of it all the days of his life, so his heart is not raised above his brethren, and he does not become arrogant, and does not think he's better than anyone, does not amass too much wealth and riches, too many women, too many horses, gold and silver, all these things. He needs to stay holy. He needs to stay righteous and not abuse his power and abuse other people. And the Torah hates abuse of power, right? That's the whole story of the Nephilim, right? These powerful
Also, the
beings.
judges aren't allowed to show favoritism and all that stuff. Like, there's
Exactly.
a lot of things in the law that keeps you from showing favoritism. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, not for the rich, not for the poor. Powerful beings in existence should not use their power to take advantage of others. And again,
Hmm.
when you have the laws of God in place, even if you are stronger, it doesn't mean that you should do it. Might doesn't make right. This is not the law of the jungle. This is the law of God. And as human beings who have the capacity to absorb higher thoughts, our job is to absorb those thoughts and then act accordingly, not just to react like a Cain and murder your brother because you're in a fit of rage, right? Like, you know, that's where we come from. So if we're not going to understand where we come from, then how are we ever going to get past that? So I find another interesting thing considering the prophet like Moses. There's a statement in Judaism regarding the Rambam Maimonides, who's really
Mm.
the creator of Judaism. Um, they say, from Moses to Moses, none arose like Moses, right? Because after Moses dies in Deuteronomy, it says no prophet arose like Moses, and so they say, well,
Hmm.
from Moses,
Moses
the
Maimonides. Yeah.
yeah, to Moses
Yeah.
Maimonides, his name was
Hmm.
Moses, son of Maimon. That's what
Hmm.
Maimonides stands for. From Moses, the prophet of God, the servant of God, who led the Israelites out of slavery up to the promised land, that Moses to Maimonides, that's like the Moses to Moses situation going on here. And
Mm.
I just find that to be so absurd because what's crazy is that Maimonides was a single individual who was actually hated by all the rabbis of his time.
Right.
This single individual single handedly created Judaism, created faith, the faith of Judaism, the required beliefs of Judaism, along with the complete rulings of halacha, which what they call halacha, which is what the Shulchan Aruch, which was written by Rabbi Joseph Caro later on, based it off of Maimonides and his rulings, which is the Talmud is really just a bunch of subjective arguments of rabbis, but
Hmm.
Maimonides decides which subjective rulings are binding
Or
law for,
valid. Yeah.
yeah, are valid and binding law. So this is, forget about consensus. This is a single individual who's deciding for all of Israel for all time what the binding laws are, and then you have very
Right.
minor debates within European Jews and Middle Eastern Jews as to, like,
Mm.
whether you can heat up chicken with sauce on Shabbat or not. Like that's pretty much the difference of opinions, and they claim that that's a world of a difference.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
what color hat should you wear? How long
Mm,
should your side curls be? That's really
mm,
what the arguments come down to at the end of the day. And obviously, then you have the mysticism too, which is completely divorced from the Torah. Because again, we have the right to sit here and have conversations and to inquire, but for us to claim that our subjective conclusions are binding law for the entire people,
right. That's
it's
crazy.
it's absolute insanity, and that
Right.
is what rabbinic Judaism is. And then when you look at their conclusions and you see that their conclusions have no resemblance, they bear no resemblance to the original source, they have no source in the original text of the Bible, then you say, well, what is binding about this? Right? Nothing. It's not even a
One
valid
person's opinion.
interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah, one
The
person's
super
opinion.
super ironic part about that, like the story with Rabbi Eliezer, and he's having the debate. I forget where it was. Uh, Bava Mitzvah 59a and b. So Rabbi Eliezer is having this debate on the oven, and he's like, "Hey, if I'm right, then let this miracle happen." And then it happens, and he's like, "See, I'm right." Then he's like, "No, that's not good enough." Then he does another miracle, and he does another miracle, and they're like, "No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count." Then he says, "If I'm right, let there be a voice out of heaven telling them that I am right." And then God speaks and says, "Hey, Rabbi Eliezer is right." And then the rabbis respond to that with, well, good, good, good. Now it's 2 versus 3. We still have the majority opinion. So the way the popular opinion was developed was just if it was the collective majority of people, but I don't even think like Moses Maimonides, I don't think he actually cites with the majority every single time in Mishnah Torah where he's like saying, hey, this is law that comes from Moses out Sinai, which is the legal term he uses. I don't think he actually sides with the majority in every single instance in which he's like, yeah, this is it, which is kind of silly and stupid in general. So there's like a contradiction between it's the popular vote and then it's one man's opinion on the popular votes to then get what is actually binding. That's just it's craziness. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. He's not even always following the majority
Right.
opinion in the Talmud itself. There is this Talmud quote. I don't know where it is, and I don't know if it's true, but I imagine it is. That if you want to do something bad, you should go to another place and do it. Have you heard that one?
I've heard where if you think something bad and don't do it, it's counted as a good thing for you in your book because they have the books of judgment that are weighed.
Right. No, no. So this is
Yeah.
a totally different thing. It's basically like
Okay.
advice to people who want to sin. Go
Okay.
somewhere where no one knows you, and
Oh
then you'll be able
yes.
to
Yeah.
sin.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my
That gets
God.
into this whole argument of you can't reveal the sins of your brothers because it'll corrupt the land if everyone knows what people are doing. Which ironically is what Islam they copied that as well. So that's
Right.
one of the biggest problems in Islam is everyone is sinning all the time, but no one knows about it, so they think they're all holy, but none of them are, and
Yeah,
it
you
just
can't
creates
reveal. Yeah, you can't
cover up
reveal the
culture.
truth about other. Yeah, it is cover up culture. You can't reveal the truth about other
Right.
people because they call it lashon hara, which is it's evil speech to say the truth. And I mean that's wild because again it just means, oh, here it is, I found it. It's the Talmud Moed Katan, 171. Let me see.
Is that Jerusalem Talmud?
Probably
Okay.
is Babylonian. It says if a Jew is tempted to do evil, he should go to a city where he is not known and do the evil there. Right? It's like, okay, so it has nothing to do with right and wrong. It uh just has to do with, I guess, what you feel like
Feel like in
doing.
the moment, yeah.
Yeah, and as long as someone knows about it. So here, this is the real source. It's from Moed Katan 17a, and it
17A.
says,
Okay.
if a person sees that his evil inclination is overpowering him, he should go to a place where he is not known, wear black clothes, and do what his heart desires, but not desecrate the name of heaven publicly. Well, there you go.
Although
I, lo-
doing what
I
your heart desires kind of desecrates the name of heaven, but
No, no, no.
yeah.
I love how Google has rabbinic propaganda baked into it. So it says the quote you shared is commonly circulated but misleading. Okay, how is it misleading? It's exactly what it says, right? No, that's what it says, right?
Yeah.
It says go and do it in private because what? Because
Right.
like you didn't learn anything from the story of Jonah. Jonah wasn't even doing anything evil. He was just trying to run away from what God wanted him to do. But no, 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 no.
Hmm.
You can just you can just do whatever you want as long as no one knows, right? Oh, the name of heaven, uh, you know, you're not corrupting the name of God if no one knows about it.
Hmm.
That is that is people worship, right? It's like, what are
Right.
people going to say? What are people going to say?
Right.
People that live by that philosophy, what are people going to
Mm.
say? They're not people. They're scum of the earth, because guess what? You're doing what people want you to do. You're saying what people want you to say. You don't exist. You're literally just a force for evil. So I mean, that's the thing, is like, at the end of the day, we're here to speak truth, and the Torah is the book that's speaking truth. The law of God is telling us how to behave no matter what
Right.
scenario we're in, right? When God comes to Cain and tells him to improve himself, he doesn't say, "But if you can't do it, then just go, go somewhere where
Go
no one
worship
knows
your
you."
heart. Yeah.
you know,
It's so messed up. It reminds me of the two rabbis that would go out and go sleep with women whenever they traveled for like retreats or like missions or like so in Yevamot's 37b. It talks about how there's a rabbi, and it's like, oh well, you can't have marriages in different cities because the the children of the different women might accidentally commit incest. It would be an abomination. And then like, oh well, rabbis and sages, they don't have that problem because they're celebrities and everyone knows them. So if you're the son of a celebrity, it's okay for the celebrity to go and just have as much intercourse across cities as he wants, as long as he marries them first. So there's a infamous statement of he'd walk into the town square and say, "Which woman would want to be my wife for the day?" And then he would leave the next morning. This is in the Talmud. It's
Sounds like marriage to me.
yeah, that sounds
That's
like marriage to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was
Yeah.
watching Elvis Presley videos of him, and this man would walk around and he had lines of women standing there just to kiss him on the lips. And so this fucking guy is like just kissing. I mean, who God knows, these women are married, they're not married. I mean, like the levels of evil are out of control. Like, how you're a celebrity? Did you not read the Torah?
Mm,
Do not have too many wives. The Nephilim taking whatever wives they wanted, corrupting the entire earth. This is the
mm,
corruption of the world. This is abuse
right.
of power. This ensures that all women, that this woman one day gets married, if she wasn't already married, and is telling her kids about how one time she kissed Elvis Presley in front of her own husband, right? Are you telling me that this is a good thing? You're telling me that this is,
Yeah.
oh, so cool, so glorious, so glamorous. This is
That's
hell.
sin.
Like, this is
Yeah.
actually hell.
Evil.
It's sin, right? And
Yeah.
and my wife for the day is, that's rich, right? Like, that's obviously not the definition of marriage, wife for the day. But of course, as long as you have the rabbinic paper, I'm sure it works. It comes down to legalism and paperwork beyond just actually being sincere about what is the situation going on here. And if you didn't learn anything from the law, if you think you're going to find loopholes around God's law, then you're not serious about what God is trying to communicate to you. And God is trying to improve you as a human being. He's not going to cover every tiny minority scenario in a book that's already pretty long. He's here to just give you the overarching principles, and you're supposed to learn from those things. And
Right.
if you're going to try to find a way around them, then that just means you're not being real with it.
Yeah. So I found the quote I was bringing up earlier, and I just want to read a couple sections. This is B'chaim 49b, and I think
Just
it's
to
the
help
beginning
you
of
out
the
there
text.
with the Jewish pronunciation, it's Pesachim.
Pesachim.
Pesach.
Pesach.
Pes-
Pesachim.
Pesachim. Yeah. So actually,
Pes-
Pesach is the Hebrew word for Passover. Pesach. And
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. The
Pesachim
Paschal
is,
lamb. Yeah.
yeah, Pesachim is plural for Passovers.
Pesachim. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I was stressing. So this is the word, and that's the plural. Okay.
Hmm.
Yep. My brain was combining that to this was the first, and that was the second, and then just yeah,
No problem.
not how Hebrew works. Okay. Thank you. There's a lot of the words where I don't hear them pronounced very often, especially the Aramaic, man. Like, ugh, like obviously I can read Aramaic because I can read Hebrew, but it gets me sometimes. Anyway,
Of course.
so here we have Rabbi Eliezer said it is permitted to stab an ignoramus to death on Yom Kippur that occurs on Shabbat. His students said to him, "Master, at least say that it's permitted to slaughter him." He said to them, "I intentionally use the word stab as this term slaughtering requires a blessing when one slaughters an animal, and that term stabbing does not require a blessing in any context." Now, the
Oh.
bold is what's actually in the text, and the other is what's interpreted by the translator. So do with that what you But
No,
then
no, no.
it
That's
gets
what it says.
worse.
I'm reading the Hebrew. That's what it says.
Yeah, it's pretty much that is what it means. Like the translation on Sephara is really good.
Yeah.
So of what I've been able to translate manually, I've been impressed by it. So I haven't really bothered because I read Hebrew significantly slower. I can just read English. Plus, if I start like badly reciting the Hebrew, everyone's gonna dislike it. So Rabbi Elazar said it is prohibited to accompany an ignoramus while traveling on the road due to concern that the ignoramus might try to harm his traveling partner. So this is like the people who are terrified of black people
Mm-hmm.
simply because they're black. As
Mm-hmm.
it is stated with regard to Torah, for it is your life and the length of your days. An ignoramus has not studied in Torah, indicating that he is not concerned about his own life with regard to another's life all the more so. And then it just keeps going. Rabbi Shmuel bar Namani said that Rabbi Yohanan said it is permitted to tear open an ignoramus like a fish. Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak said, and one may cut him open from his back and thereby cause his immediate death by piercing his spinal cord rather than his stomach. And then it just keeps going. It was taught in a Berita that Rabbi Akiva said, when I was in ignoramus, I said, who will give me a Torah scroll or a Torah scholar so that I will bite him like a donkey? His students said to him, Master, say that you would bite him like a dog. He said to them, I specifically use that wording as this one, a donkey bites and breaks bones, and that one, a dog bites but does not break
Right.
bones.
So that's a famous one with Rabbi Akiva, because the idea of Rabbi
Right,
Akiva is that he himself was an Am Haaretz. He himself was an ignoramus, and then
right,
he became the great rabbi of rabbis. Yeah.
right. It was taught in a Berita that Rabbi Meir would say, anyone who marries off his daughter to an ignoramus is considered as though he binds her and places her before a lion. So this is what I was trying to quote earlier, but I said wolf instead. Why is this so? Just as a lion mauls its prey and eats and has no shame, so too an ignoramus strikes his wife and then engages in sexual relations with her without appeasing her first and has no shame.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out that, like, when we talk about ignoramus of Torah law, that doesn't mean someone who doesn't know the Ten Commandments or what the Torah says. It means
Right.
someone who doesn't know rabbinic doublespeak,
Rabbinic stuff. Right.
rabbinic literature specifically. And that's the harm here, is that the word Torah has lost its meaning under the Jewish wording, which is what I'm trying to restore here. When I say Torah, I don't mean rabbinic literature. I don't mean the Talmud, because non-Jews, they hear the Talmud, they conflate that with the Torah, because Jews conflate the Torah and the Talmud together, but they're not the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
If we
insane.
did
I
not
mean,
need
yeah,
the ignoramuses for business, they would kill us.
yeah, yeah.
Like just the classism and the like pseudo, not necessarily racism, but like the terrible beliefs about your neighbor and even like, hey, go slaughter them like a fish.
Yeah.
That's a
Also,
wild statement.
no attempt to try to reach, like, if you think they're ignorant, how about you follow the Torah, rebuke your fellow, reach out to him, right? Love your fellow as
Teach
yourself. Like,
them.
if you were, yeah,
Yeah.
if you were an ignoramus, but by the way, this is the culture, the rabbinic culture, where they isolate themselves in elitist groupthink, and they don't reach out to other people. They believe
Right.
that they should be supported for sitting in closed off study halls, engaging in endless Talmudic talk, and they believe that other people should support them for doing that. They don't provide any service to humanity. They're not out there acting as teachers and functioning to help guide society as priests in any capacity. What they're doing is they're isolating themselves behind closed doors and studying Talmud incessantly, and they're claiming that that is their contribution to the world. They actually say that they are the ones who are holding up the world, which is why they don't go to service in the military, for example, in Israel, because they say what we're
Mm.
doing is more beneficial for the land of Israel than the soldiers who are on the front lines of the army. Now, of course, what they're saying there is a mockery of King David, who spent his entire
Mm.
life on the battlefield. It's a mockery of Abraham, who was able to go to war at an advanced age, right? They're saying us sitting here behind closed doors, studying Talmud, contributing absolutely nothing to the world, is what is keeping the world going and is a greater protection to the land than the military itself. None of this has any basis in biblical belief whatsoever. It's entirely made up, mystical, Kabbalistic nonsense that has no foundation in reality or the Bible. And
Right.
what we're looking at is a very unfortunate scenario where, again, when you live in a elitist bubble, you tend to view everyone who's not part of it as being a very lowly person who's not even a human being, who you can gut him like a fish and it doesn't really matter, right? But the whole idea of what people of God are here to do is to call out to those who are less fortunate, is to help those in need, to help the stranger, to help the widow and the orphan, people that don't have a support system and don't necessarily have people to teach them and educate them. We're here to help. Leaders are born to serve. Right? I believe there's a story with Jesus like that where he's wiping his disciples' feet, and because they were fighting over like who's going to be the new Jesus, and he was like, all right, look at me, I'm cleaning all your feet. Like whoever's going to be the leader, you're just going to have to serve more. Right? That's really the job of a leader at the end of the day. And if people think that their leadership is just so that they can sit there on their throne and receive glory, I mean, that's obviously not what it's about. It's about service and service to God and to your fellow man. And that's actually something that Moses told the Levites. It's a really beautiful passage in the passage about Korach, who's the Levite who tries to rebel against Moses by saying, hey, who are you? You rewarded this power to yourself. And obviously that's insane. Like these people are witnessing Moses
all those miracles, everything, like all the craziness, Yahweh literally descending and talking to him personally, and then he does all that nonsense.
It's beyond miracles. It's like couldn't
his
be
face
clearer.
Is glowing.
It couldn't be clearer that Moses is the man he is the man of God. He is the servant of God, right? And okay, so Korach's response is, wait, we're all holy, like why do you think you're better? As if Moses was abusing his power in any way, which is something that Moses says. He says, have I taken anything from them? I haven't even taken a donkey from them. I haven't how could these here, this is so it's Numbers chapter 16. Moses 16:15. Moses got very angry and said to Yahweh, do not turn towards their offering. I have not taken any donkey from them, and I have not done evil to even one of them. All right, so Moses is saying he knows he has never done anything wrong to these people. And never taken advantage of them once. But he rebukes the Levites because the Levites are the priest class in the Torah's vision. And what he says to them, because Korach is a Levite, and he says, how is this not enough? He says, the Hebrew, Rav Lachem, this is too much for you. Like you already have so much. And so it's Numbers 16:9. He says, is it not enough for you that the God of Israel separated you from the rest of the community of Israel to come near to him, to serve the service of the tabernacle of Yahweh, and to stand before the community to serve them? Like you were separated to serve Yahweh and to serve the people and to minister to them. That is your role. You talk about God is saying Israel is supposed to be a kingship of priests. Well, what is a priest? A priest is someone who ministers. Well, if the nation of Israel are all priests, who are they supposed to minister to? Well, the rest of the world. Well, what does it mean to be a king? It means that you actually serve your people, and you're not an arrogant son of a bitch. You're a humble man who actually is there to help others and to serve as a role model and a leader, right? The prophets, light unto the nation, all these things.
Right.
That's actually what we're supposed to be doing. And instead we say, oh, no. Like that's not enough. Right? Like, how is that not enough? God literally separated you to serve him and his sanctuary and his people, and that's not enough, right? So, I mean, yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, there's so many stupid things in the whole process. Again, with the whole Egyptian paganism thrown into it, the whole idea that the rabbis are upholding the universe by doing what they're doing, that's like just straight from Egypt with Maya, the goddess of the cosmic order, and Pharaoh is the personification of Ma'at. So the reason why Pharaoh didn't go to war is because he upholds the universe. If he goes to war and dies, then the universe could cease to exist. Which is absolute nonsense.
Sounds like even a convenient way to avoid death at battle.
Yeah, to give yourself infinite women and food and whatever you want. Yeah, it's pretty great. And then your children inherit it. So you can just have an everlasting dynasty where you are the central god. And even Ra only exists by your being. So Maya and Pharaoh also sustained the gods. So if Pharaoh ceased to exist, the gods would cease to exist, and then the whole universe would cease to exist because most of the universe was a form of God. So like Nut is the sky, Geb's the earth. Like you have pretty interesting, like I made like a 30-40 minute video on that all stuff.
That's back to the same concept. We're the ones who justify God. We're the ones who uphold his existence, right? That's literally an Egyptian idea, as you're pointing out. that idea is despicable, right?
It's
God
evil.
needs us. God needs
Yeah.
us. We're giving God power. The fact that we believe in God makes him real. You hear a lot of people say that that's like a new age bullshit way to get around atheism. They're like, well, if you really believe it, it's true. No, no, that's not, that's not how it works, right? It's true independent of your existence ever existing, right? There's zero humility in that viewpoint. You are the source of yourself. You're the source of existence. You're the source of God. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's wild.
insane.
It's evil. Yeah. So I have four things that I'm trying to use. I'm like working through them on like how to formulate the best of okay, how can we actually show that the Mishnah is obviously not from God?
Mhm.
Um, one of them is obviously like the term itself, like talking about its own halakha from Sinai from through Moses, like that exact phrase only appears like three times in the entire Talmud. I don't like uh if all of it, or at least most of it, 'cause obviously not all of it can be from Sinai because there's just straight up statements like, "Hey, Rabbi so and so invented this law to preserve this function." So, no, I would hope no rabbi would actually say that all of the Talmud or even just all of the Mishnah comes back to Sinai. They would have to say that only what goes to Sinai. But even what supposedly goes to Sinai, there is no clear distinction there. As we were talking about earlier with Maimonides, he helped establish what did go back to Sinai. But even like some of the radical, stupid ideas, like the tag, like the crowns on top of all the letters, obviously couldn't have happened because those letters weren't even the letters used when it was revealed to Moses. So those letters didn't exist. That's a new script that wasn't and like even the Talmud talks about that. It says like, hey, you can write a Torah scroll in this language with that script, and it's valid. But if you do it the other way around, it's invalid. So there's even like admission that the letters themselves, that script itself, doesn't go back to Sinai, and we have archaeological evidence that doesn't go back to Sinai. So you have a lot of like 280 claims that just obviously are false. That can't go back to Sinai, that they claim go back to Sinai, including the story of like Moses being teleported into the future to sit in Rabbi Akiva's class about those letters and then be like, oh wow, that's amazing. So supposedly, and then it's like the whole thing with the the Samach, whenever God was writing it, he like magically or like miraculously held the stone in place on the tablets because otherwise the little hole inside the circle would fall out. But that's not the actual shape of the original alphabet. So it didn't have any circle there. Anyway, there's lots of mental problems there. But we have all these laws that just don't go back to it. So why in the world, if this is God's revealed speech to Moses, why is it so unclear about what is binding and what's not binding? And why is it given in a format that is not super understandable? The Torah is very understandable. It is very simply laid out. It makes a lot of sense. And there's not that many laws. There's like 200 or so laws. And the whole like, 613 that's made up as well. There's around like 200 to 300 laws in the Torah, depending on if you're double counting, like do not murder, those type of things. But if you're not double counting things like 180 to 200, it's really not that many. But the Mishnah has hundreds, if not thousands, of them. Um, that is a massive increase, and yet there is no source for it before the rabbis. We have no evidence of it's being written down. And in the Bible itself, it says that Moses and the scribes wrote everything down that was given to him, which is kind of interesting. If you say that the oral Torah goes back to Moses and he wrote everything down, there should be some evidence of that, or the Torah is lying about what happened. And I don't know how you get past that. If you accept the oral Torah, that would make God a liar in the written Torah.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it says clearly at the end of Deuteronomy that Moses wrote down the Torah to its completion. It says that Joshua
Mm-hmm.
read it to the Israelites and there was nothing lacking from what
Mm-hmm.
Moses commanded when Joshua read it to the Israelites. The Torah of Moses in the Tanakh was always understood as the five books of Moses. Coming later on, and Maimonides even talks about this as he describes the oral Torah, he basically said it was just personal notebooks of rabbis where they were writing down their debates and their discussions. And so
Right.
that's his evidence that the oral Torah preceded the Talmud, he's like, well, people were writing down their opinions, so like it must be the Torah from Sinai. No, that's just people's opinions
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
notebooks, right?
Right.
So the fact that there were traditions that dated back before the Talmud doesn't mean that those are the laws of God from Sinai. In fact, the laws of
Hmm.
God from Sinai are written down to their completion in the five books of Moses. What it says in the five books of Moses, as you said, if we're not going to say that the five books of Moses is lying about itself, then it wouldn't say that it was written down to its completion and that you should follow everything that's written in this book of the Torah. That is what we're commanded to do, that and nothing else. In fact, we are not allowed to add or subtract to any of these commandments that are
Deuteronomy 12,
written
13. Yep.
in this book, right?
Yep.
So, okay, so that's abundantly clear. Historically, as well, it's abundantly clear that the Torah itself, the written Torah itself, was lost from among Israel. The king of Israel, King Josiah, didn't even know that it existed until he found it in the archives of the temple. Now, if they couldn't maintain the written Torah, how in the world were they maintaining the oral Torah? I mean, there's so many things that just make it abundantly clear. But most of all, what it is clear is that when you open the oral Torah, it consists of a bunch of debates between rabbis. That's it. That's what it is. That's what the Mishnah is. That's what the
Right.
Midrash is. That's what the Talmud is. That's what the Halacha is. That's what everything. It's just a bunch of different opinions, and their claims. Their claims about uh, ideas. They are interpretations, their traditions, and all of these things. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist. All I'm saying is that they are not the law of God, and that there
Right.
isn't a single individual who has the ability to tell you, oh, you must follow this rabbi's opinion, or that
Mm.
your opinion must be one of the predetermined rabbinic opinions from 2,000 years ago. If the Torah is alive, if the Torah is the word of God, then we can continue to have the debate and continue to have that discussion up until this day. Especially as we are not an established nation, we are not a unified nation, we do not have the land of Israel with certainty, clarity, and godliness. So when we talk about the reality of Israel, we don't have a good definition for what a Jew means. We don't have a good definition for what the Torah is. However, the Torah has a good definition for what a Jew means. The Torah has a good definition for what the Torah is. And all of those answers are found in it of itself. Now, you said something, and you probably said this because you're a Christian, and you said that the Torah is easily understandable, right? Now, a key part of rabbinic literature is to create a breakdown of the Torah's words, to say that and this is something you will hear from every single Orthodox Jew, the Torah is not understandable. The Torah is the most confusing book in the world. The Torah makes no sense at all if you don't
Oh
have
man.
the oral Torah.
Right.
That's what
It's
they
so
say.
stupid. Yeah.
And their proof is, well, how would you know what color box the ornament should be on your head?
Does it matter? That's a better question. Yeah.
Oh, you got me there, right? So the point is they have about 3 to 5 of the same exact arguments. Another one of their brilliant arguments is that it says that God gave mitzvot, commandments, chukim, decrees, and torot, laws, within the book of the Torah. And they say, well, look at that. There's plural Torahs. There's more than one Torah. Now, it couldn't possibly be that there are multiple laws in the book of the law. That's not a possibility, right? It has to be that it's some
Mm.
external law that's not in the book of the law itself, even though there are multiple Torot, multiple laws in the Torah, in the book of the law. So again, this stuff is like kindergarten shit. And at the same time, that is how debates work in general. Like when there are people that have a bad argument, they just continue to repeat all of those bad arguments and they pile like one on top of another. And then apparently they think they've presented a case. They haven't presented a case. There's no actual case to be presented. And again, their claims rely on undermining the word of God. Okay? That's the main point that you have to see. You can see their motives because they need to undermine God's ability to communicate with humanity in order to justify the need for them to enter the picture and create their own religion, right? If
Right.
you believe that God knows how to communicate with humanity and God knows how to clarify law better than anyone else can, then you don't expect that you would need 1,000 rabbis over 5,000 years, whatever, 3,000 years to interpret these things for you because you believe that God can communicate. God being the creator of man, God being the creator of language, God being the one who knows exactly what you need to hear at exactly the right time. All of that wisdom and all of that guidance is found in the Torah itself. But in order to undermine the Torah, rabbis say that it's not understandable, and then you would need them to enter the picture and clarify things for you. But the point that I make all the time
So
is that
stupid.
no, it's insane. And the point that I make all the
Yeah.
time is that everything that the rabbis say is confusing. It's not clarifying, right? They make
True. Truth. Yes. It's
right.
so
They make
stupid. And there's like 7 opinions on literally everything. So it's not even like there's one opinion that's right. It is a slew of opinions of, oh, well, maybe this, and like they contradict each other all the time because it's different people with different opinions. So how do you know what's truth? And like, oh, well, I just follow Gimiel, or oh, I just follow Akiva. Like, but then you're just taking a rabbi as God. Like you're putting him in the place of God, which
yeah.
ironically is what the Quran accuses Jews of doing. Anyway,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
9:30. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, that's funny. The Quran does say, like, children of Israel, you make your rabbis as gods and all that,
that's Lord
right?
beside
So,
him.
right, and then
Hmm.
they proceed to do the same thing in their religion. So,
Right.
you know,
I will be. I will
genius.
be. I do not believe the Torah is simple to understand because I'm a Christian. I believe the Torah is simple to understand because I've read it. Um, yeah. So
By the way,
it makes
that
a lot of sense.
that is the best evidence that exists, and the more people that just read it for what it says will be able to understand that that is the case. But when you're entering into reading it, being told that it's not understandable, and again, when I was taught the Torah, I was taught one verse, 6 different commentaries. One verse, 6 different commentaries. So I never even knew what the Torah said because I only
Right.
knew what the Talmud said, right?
Right.
The first time that I read the Torah actually as a book, like when I entered adulthood and I realized, okay, now I can actually rediscover this without the religious propaganda and the system that they do it, I just started reading it from the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. And then when I finished the first verse, I just went on to the second one, and I kept reading it as if it was a book, as if it was telling me a story, as if it was, as if it was writing me legal code, which is exactly what it is. And all of a
Um,
sudden, it made so much sense to me that I immediately renounced any opinions that I had that were contrary to the Torah, and I began to live my life by the laws of the Torah. And
mm,
I think the law is perfectly simple and easy
very
to
easy. Yeah.
fulfill. And,
Yeah.
there are some things that people may take issue with or may think are kind of stupid, but, you start to realize that if the same God who told you do not murder told you, uh, if you want to have an additional level of purity and holiness, don't eat pork, well, then I guess I just won't eat pork, and that's almost as if God knows that we are mere humans and made it easy for us. Exactly. And
Yep.
so again, it's a simultaneous thing where they say the Torah is not clear, but also it's too clear. So this rabbi was telling me, he was telling me, like, you think God came to the world just to tell us not to steal? Like, come on, right? It's like,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
you
That's
don't think
needed.
you
Yes.
don't
Correct.
you don't think we need to hear that, right? And like
Oh
I
my
talked
goodness.
to a Buddhist guy who was telling me that, like, he's like, I read the Torah and it just sounds like, morality for morons. God is like, listen, I'm your father, like, this is it, like, it's that simple. And he's spoon feeding us because he's like, y'all are crazy, like, you can't follow any laws, right? So he's like, he's like, just God is telling you straightforward. And by the way, clearly it's not that simple because people don't follow it, right? If it was that simple, then people would just do it. So we always need to hear these things, even when we're in good times, even when we're in bad times. We need to remember, why are we in good times? Because we're following God. Why are we in bad times? Because we're not following God. It's axiomatic. It works every time. That is the reality. Satanism is the inverse of the laws in the Torah. Murder, good. Adultery, good. Stealing, good. Homosexuality, good. Everything the Torah says is bad, we say is good. There's one God, there's a million gods, right? Like, they invert everything and they worship the opposition as opposed to worshiping God himself. And
Mm,
that's destructive as hell because you start to turn the world into hell as opposed to heaven, right? God
yeah.
says the world
As
could
we
be
see in
heaven.
like Canada. Yeah. Like
Mhm.
they just legalized same day self helped like suicide.
Mhm.
So now you can get
Exactly.
medically assisted suicide same day. You walk into a hospital, say, "Hi, I want to die," and they kill you.
Did that just happen? They just legalized it?
Like last week, but there was like
Oh my
70
God.
people that were killed in just one province in a day. The first day it was legal. Like dozens of people were killed, including like a 26-year-old who had seasonal depressive disorder, SAD, or seasonal affective disorder, which is just seasonal depression. And he walked in, said, "Hey, I'm sad." He has sad, and he is sad. And then he said, "Hey, I want to die," and they just killed him.
Oh my God. Yeah, but they're
Wicked,
not.
evil.
Yeah, but they're not murderers because they have a white coat on and they're doctor, right? It goes back to that same thing. Oh, I
Super
have the
evil. Yeah.
title. I have the title rabbi, therefore I'm a god. I'm Pharaoh. Oh, I'm a doctor. Doctor.
Mhm.
Doctor. Please,
Right.
doctor. Are you kidding me? Like these people just cut off people's genitals, mutilate them, castrate them, kill their fetuses, and then you want to talk about them being saviors? My God, that's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that. And again, like that is the world that people create when they rule out murder, when they rule out, and again, oh, there's no human sacrifice. There's none of these things going on. Like I saw a video of a woman who created an abortion shrine where she put up the images of the what are those things called when the woman's pregnant and they take the ultrasound. She put up
Ultrasounds.
the images of her babies in the ultrasounds, all the
Mm,
babies that she murdered in her womb,
mm,
and then said, every morning I wake up and look at these babies that I murdered, and I worship at the shrine of me because I killed them for me, for my life, so I can live
mm.
my best life, and I can be a big stinky old whore, and I can do whatever the fuck I want and ruin my life and live a meaningless life, and I'm doing that all in the graves of these children who I murdered and gave to the government so they can use those aborted fetuses to create vaccines and stem cell research and put people into more uh, cycles of government assisted medical suicide, right? So
Right. Which is
I mean,
so messed up. Yeah.
yeah, and again, this is allegedly the system that's healing you, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, like now that we can see that the corruption of mankind knows no bounds, that an entire country of Egypt, which is considered to be a sophisticated culture, was convinced to worship their human king as God. Why do you think it's so out of reach that the Jews worship their rabbis as God, or that people can have these secondary deities that are not God that they worship as God? That is literally human nature. So, are you going to maybe get past your nature? Maybe you're going to be aware of it. Like, that's why the first commandment of the Ten Commandments is, "I am Yahweh your God. You shall not have any other gods." The minute we understand that there is one God above all gods, and we know what he says and we know what he wants from us and we all need to do that and we're all equally accountable to that, game over. That's world peace already, right?
Right. Yeah.
And not just world peace, it's inner peace.
Right.
It begins within yourself. You start to realize, okay, so maybe God does care about me. Maybe God did care enough to reach out to the world and to make the entire world become aware of this knowledge from all corners of the world. The Ten Commandments are known. The Bible is known. And that's not a coincidence. That's God's doing. And now we have these understandings. And what's our excuse? He killed me first. Okay, well then why did he kill you? And then he's like, well, he killed me first. Well, someone had to start this. So how about no one starts it? And then there's no
Right.
excuse.
Just live in peace, and everyone has peace. Yeah. It's crazy, crazy idea. Uh, so going back to the one of the statements you made is just so important. I was going to bring it up. In the Christian Bible, we have Kings split into two books. And in
Mhm.
Second Kings chapter 22, it goes over the Josiah incident where for
Sorry, in
generations.
one second. In the Hebrew Bible too, there's also Kings 1 and 2.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah.
Okay. I know the ordering is different. I thought they combined Chronicles as one book and Kings as one book and Samuel as one book.
No,
That might
they
just
they
be
have
the older
no.
version of it.
They have
Okay.
them all in 2.
Okay. So Second Kings 22, we have Josiah becoming king at the age of 8, and he is, one of his priests finds the law hidden in the temple whenever they're doing renovations, cleaning it. That's crazy. And then he reads the law, then he's like, oh, and he tears his clothes because he realizes, oh, we are all deep, dirty, evil sinners who've been doing this for a long time. God's gonna kill us all. Um, and then God like threatens them, but he does all of the reform and it's awesome. But for generations, all law was gone from Israel. So what do you do with that as a, believing that the Mishnah is traced back through it's like the Isnad chain of Perkavolt 1:1 and Mishnah Torah Rambam, he gives a version of it. But if you say it goes from Moses to Joshua, Joshua to the elders, elders to the great assembly or the Sanhedrin, and then that gets down to Judah the prince. Like, if you say it goes through that process during Israel's history, it was gone for generations. So who preserved it if there's multiple generations between one and the other, where no one is using it, no one's teaching it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that
Yeah.
is something we should really focus in
Yeah,
on
for sure. I
more.
mean, I guess their
Yeah.
answer would be, like apparently Isaiah was alive at that time, so maybe it was preserved through the prophets or something like that. But
Right.
clearly not on any national scale. And the prophets never mentioned the oral Torah. The prophets weren't coming out and be like, "Why aren't you washing your hands correctly?" The prophets were shitting on God's laws. The prophets were like, "You're not even like God doesn't even need your
Right.
sacrifices that He told you to
Yeah.
do." Right? Let
Worthless
alone,
assemblies. Yeah.
yeah,
Trampling on my courts. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They were criticizing the things that God even told the people to do, let alone the
Mm,
insane. I mean, Isaiah says the you're following the commandments of man, right? You're by rote you're following the commandments of man, right? So he calls out the commandments of man as being the source of these problems as well. So of course, again, in the entire Tanakh, which is the historical gap between Moses and the rabbis, there is no mention of the oral Torah. And so that's obviously abundantly clear. And again, something that's so sad about that Mishnah, which is the first Mishnah in Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avot,
mm,
which says Moses gave the Torah to Joshua, Joshua gave it to the prophets to the men of the Great Assembly. That's not what happened. Moses
right.
was the vehicle that God used to bring the Torah to the people, right? And what they're doing is they're saying, no, 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 we're going to rob the people of that right and we're going to take it to ourselves. It was the elites.
Right.
It was only the leaders, only the people that are the leadership of Israel actually received the Torah from Moses, from God to Moses. But the people, nah, screw you all, fuck you all. What about the fact that the Torah says you should teach these words diligently to your children, speaking to every single Israelite man and woman? Teach these words to your children when you sit in your home, when you walk on the way. This is obviously a call to the individual and the family unit. Yet they go and rob people of that right, and they say, "No, it's us, the authorities, the rabbis. We're the ones who have the true Torah for Moses." Well,
Hmm.
I mean, that's awful. It's genuinely
Right.
a crime because, again, it robs people of their true rights, which God is giving us the right to know Him, to know His Word, and to have autonomy in our own lives and our own families to live out His Word in accordance with our understanding, as long as it does not contradict the explicit commandments that are in the Torah.
Right. And talking about like the Great Assembly and the Sanhedrin, that obviously didn't exist. We have no mention of it in Kings or Chronicles. There's absolutely no mention. Like there's mentions of groups of judges that are in like distributed throughout the whole countryside. I think under Hezekiah, like we have differences in how judicial systems are set up between the kings. It's not like one system that they all use. So there's no mention of the Great Assembly, but you have a lot of stories in the Talmud of the Great Assembly, the Sanhedrin, operating back in history. They like retcon their own history in order to insert themselves into it. And you have stuff from like Shabbat, I think 55a and b, where it talks about how the prophets and the kings who had the Holy Spirit, who were like anointed of the Lord, they couldn't sin because the whole idea is that the sages can't sin, therefore they're like perfect in their interpretation of the law, and you have to obey them blindly. But it says that David didn't sin, and if anyone says that he sinned with Bathsheba, they're basically like outside of rabbinic Judaism. You have to believe that David was sinless because he had the Shekinah on him. He had the presence of God on him, and because of that, he was like protected against major errors. So she was divorced whenever he had intercourse with her, possibly forcibly. And Uriah was actually an idol worshiper. Instead of Uriah being this awesome, wonderful man who is like super, super devout to David, who he considers a close friend, and really awesome guy, and he's thinking of his troops and like all these wonderful things. Like Uriah was based. Instead of Uriah being super based and the Bible uplifting him, the Talmud's version is he was an idol worshiper that was condemned by death by the Sanhedrin, and David was just in getting them killed. He just should have had them strangled instead of killed on the front lines.
Yeah.
But you have
No.
to assume that the Sanhedrin exist for that retconning of history. So not only are they retconning history with the Sanhedrin being there when it wasn't, they're also saying that David was sinless in this great and evil sin that we get the most beautiful chapter of the Bible, Psalm 51, out of it, where David admits to be a sinner over and over and over and over again. And then he praises God that even through his sin that is unredeemable through the Torah legal system, he's still redeemed by God. He's still loved by God, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing to read. But you are entirely removing the power of that by saying that he never sinned to begin with.
Of
It's just a
course.
contradiction with the Bible, or at least with the Psalms. If you
Right.
want to, which the rabbis would assume that the Psalms
Hmm.
are revealed by God, like the
Hmm.
Tehillim
Yeah.
are
But
divine,
again, that's a perfect
inspired.
example of historical inaccuracy, textual inaccuracy, logical inaccuracy, right? It doesn't add up on any level
Any
other
level
than
whatsoever.
other than
Yeah.
the absurdism of backwards thinking where you deliberately say the opposite of what is trying to be said. So for example, there's a one of the last verses in Ecclesiastes. Solomon says, "Beware, my son, for too many books, weary the soul and weary the flesh, and don't read too many books and write too many books. Shouldn't be your path." Right? The
Right.
rabbis in Eruvin 22b, I believe, remove that quote out of context and say, "Beware, my son, with the many books." And from that they derive that the Sophrim, the scribes, the rabbis who write many books, are actually superior to the Torah. And so they say, "Beware, my son, for the scribes more than for the Torah," because the scribes, everything they say is
Oh,
punishable by death, right?
oh
But
yeah, of
if you
course, yeah.
break the Torah, eh, you know, it doesn't really matter. It depends on what you're doing. But
Hmm.
if you break what the rabbi says, everything's punishable by death. So what motivated them to do that? Is it because they're colossal fools who don't know how to read? Or is it because they're sinister manipulators who take things out of context to tell you the opposite of what it's saying? Right? And both of those don't look very good. Right? Yeah, of making books, there is no end. Therefore, let's make many books and beware more with our books than with the word of God and the book of God. Yeah, that's
Oh,
exactly
it's
what's going on here.
so stupid, man. Yeah.
Right? So what are we actually doing here? This and again, it would be fine to laugh at it if it was just a bunch of loonies writing their you know their thoughts one day, but if these are the leaders of Judaism whose words we
Hmm.
now have to contend with as a people, as people
Hmm.
unearth Talmudic quotes and put them in the face of Jews, and the Jews' response is, "Well, you don't understand the context, of course," right? And I was like, no, 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 no. This is horse shit. This is evil. This is not the word of God, right? That should be a Jew's response. Instead, we
Mm.
have to sit here dodging and trying to make our way around this as if this is okay at all. It's not okay. Um, so yeah, that's Erevin. Sorry, Erevin 21b says, "More than this, my son, beware of making many books. Therefore, beware more of the words of the scribes and the words of the Torah, because the words of the Torah have positive and negative commandments, but the words of the scribes, whoever transgresses them, is deserving of death."
Yeah.
So what is that?
It's
What is that?
right. What do you do with that as a rabbi? You just ignore the Bible.
Yeah, you ignore the Bible, say the opposite of it. It's the same thing where in Exodus it says, "Do not follow the majority for evil and to pervert the law." They just remove, "Well, follow the majority," right? And it's like, well, it's not quite what it says. It says, "Don't follow the majority in cases of perversion and evil." And I guess, you know, maybe majority is a way of ruling law, but it's not the Torah. The Torah doesn't say follow the majority. And it definitely
Right.
doesn't say to follow the majority when the majority is wrong and perverting the law. So,
Right.
you want to talk about consensus, you want to talk about the majority of rabbis, you want to talk about what everyone's doing. That does not define truth anyway. So
Mm.
the whole idea of saying, "Oh, well, the majority of rabbis say this, therefore it's right." No, majority does not dictate truth. And if what they're saying is objectively not in the text and it's completely made up, and the text says, "Do not add or subtract to these commandments," then that's not something that we should even be taking seriously at all.
Yeah, especially whenever the commandments are contradicting the text of Scripture,
Mm-hmm.
which should be a red flag to everyone, but it's just not for some reason. But like, oh well, the system changed because the temple was destroyed. It's like, yeah, but a lot of the stuff that's changed is not due to like the sacrificial stuff, like blowing a shofar on the Sabbath.
Mhm.
That's not allowed. Why is that not allowed? That seems to be
Yeah.
a command from God, and you're
Mhm.
just ignoring the command of God because of your own interpretation of the passages. I mean,
Mhm.
it seems to be a pretty clear command of God.
Yeah, so the
Anyway,
reasoning, by the way, is they say you can't do it on Shabbat. First of all, they make 2 days of the holiday,
right,
even though there's only one day.
right,
So they're like, well, we didn't do it on the first day. We'll just do it the second day, right? Of course, there is no 2 days in the Torah. It's just the first day of the seventh month. And it's not Rosh
right.
Hashanah. It's not the New Year.
Yeah.
It's the seventh month. And it's the day of remembrance where you sound a blast. Now, their concern is what if you end up carrying the horn to the shul?
Mm,
So, first of all, you don't have to go to shul. Second of all,
mm,
there's no prohibition against carrying. This is a rabbinic commandment that they made up by saying that you are not allowed to transfer one thing from one domain to another. We've discussed this. The solution is putting a fishing line around your neighborhood and all that stuff. That's not a commandment in the Torah. The Torah never
that's so
says
stupid.
that you're not allowed to transfer something from one domain to another. That is a completely arbitrary definition of work. It doesn't fall under any actual category. Like,
Right.
it's not work, it's not labor. And their sources, well, look in Jeremiah, Jeremiah was rebuking the people for carrying their wares into the marketplace and selling their products on Shabbat.
Yeah. Working. Yeah.
Yeah, working and carrying heavy burdens. That's work on Shabbat, not pushing your
Right.
baby in a stroller and holding your key
Hmm.
in your pocket or carrying a shofar to the synagogue. No,
Hmm.
that's
Or
not
turning on a
working at
light
all.
switch. Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so silly. The 39 categories of breaking Sabbath is so painful to me going through, especially because I know people who follow the Torah with just the Torah. They don't use any of the nonsense that's been added to it. And it's really not that difficult. Now there's definitely like it's expensive to do in our society because you have to purchase a bunch of things that are not custom or defaults. Like you have to get a lot of like even all your fabric has to be unique. The meats are more expensive. A lot of it is just expensive, but it's not
Well,
necessarily
I just want to
hard.
I want to weigh in on that for a second. What do you mean by that?
Which one?
Fabrics?
So,
Fabrics start
you're
there.
not allowed to have two different types of
No,
fabrics mixed together in your
you're not
cloth.
allowed to have wool and linen.
Wool and linen, yeah.
So that's which one of your clothes is wool and linen? Most clothes are cotton or just wool, 100% wool. I
That's fair.
you yeah, you will never run into a problem of mixing wool and linen in like modern
Right.
society. Extremely rare. As far as meat, you do not have to buy kosher meat.
You
You
just
know that,
make
right?
it kosher yourself with the salt. Yeah.
No, you don't even have to salt it. Remember, it's actually physically impossible to remove 100% of blood.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Salting meat takes it from about, say, 60% removal of blood based off of how modern butchering is done. Because what they do is, in modern
They
butchering,
drain it.
they cut the neck and they drain it right after they cut the neck, which is actually
Mm-hmm.
the heartbeat's still going, which is the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the blood is gone. 60 up to 60% of the blood is gone. With kosher salting, you bring it up to 70%. But is that really what
Mm.
God's talking about? Like, what if you were going hunting and you kill the animal and you drain its blood? You're not going to get out 100% of the blood, especially if the
Right.
heart stops beating, right? So the
Right.
reality is, like, if you're eating meat, you're not eating blood, you're eating meat, right? And the whole commandment is like, don't have blood rituals, don't drink blood, don't just have your meat soaked in blood. You have to pour out the blood onto the ground, get rid of it. But if you're having a kosher animal, as in a cow, a sheep, a goat, a deer, if you're having a kosher animal and you're not actually drinking blood, right? That's
Right.
meat,
Right.
right? To
Right.
view the meat as blood is an extremist rabbinic thing. The Torah never says you need to salt your meat. Case in point, the Torah doesn't say thou shalt salt their meat to remove the blood. The
It's
Torah just says
true. Yes. Yeah.
Torah just says pour
Don't
out
eat blood.
yeah,
Right.
don't pour out the blood like water. Modern butchering is a perfect equivalent to kosher butchering. Kosher butchering does nothing different than modern butchering other than
It's
salting
true.
the meat, which removes
Yeah.
about 10% more of the blood. And I guess that's good, but also that's not the requirement of the Torah, right? So you definitely do not have to buy kosher meat. Kosher meat is a complete scam. They add way, way, way too much to the price. And again, what they're mostly concerned with is like the hindquarters, because you have the sinew, the hip sinew, which
Mm.
is essentially interpreted as the sciatica nerve. But again, the sciatica nerve is actually removed in modern butchering. So like I've actually researched this. It's such a thick sinew that they just remove it as part
Yeah.
of the
It's not
butchering process.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not even going to run into those questions. So what really is the questions? there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And this specific method of slaughter that the rabbis do, that, by the way, the rabbi was saying the same blessing he has to make on slaughtering an animal, he says on slaughtering an amaretz, right? The whole
Hmm.
blessing of the slaughter, the special form of slaughter is actually not
Uh,
mentioned in the Torah either. And their whole source
mm,
of that is in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 21. Deuteronomy 12:21. It says, slaughter from your cattle and your sheep as I commanded you. And so they say that's like
mm,
their best source, their best possible source they could ever come up with, because it says, slaughter as I commanded you. Well, where did God command you to slaughter? In the oral Torah, right? So, of course, it's the oral Torah, right? However, when you actually look at the context, God is allowing us to eat meat
right.
for the first time outside of the tabernacle, right? In Leviticus 17, God says you can only eat your domestic animals, cows, sheep, and goats, in the tabernacle. In Deuteronomy 12, God is allowing us to eat whenever our heart desires, whenever our soul desires to eat meat, you can eat meat, because he's expanding the borders, we're entering the land. So when it says you may slaughter as I commanded you, it's actually referring to verse 15 of the same chapter, where God is telling you you are allowed to eat meat whenever you want. So the whole chapter is literally about allowing us to eat meat whenever we want. So it's a chapter about allowing us to do more, permitting us
Hmm.
more, and the rabbis use that as a source to limit us as much as possible, to say unless you had your meat slaughtered by a kosher rabbi, you're not going to be able to eat it because it's not slaughtered in the secret special way as I commanded you. So that's their whole source. But the reality is, you do not have to buy kosher meat. It's an insane strain on the budget, because they get rid of the entire back half of the cow. They basically say it's too hard for us to remove the sciatica nerve, so we're just going to get rid of the back half of the cow. So you're not going to
Mm,
find a sirloin steak or any part of the hindquarter in a kosher butcher. They just get rid of it and they sell it to non-kosher butchers, which also makes the price of the meat go way up because they lost half the animal. So they need a rabbi certification, which costs an arm and a leg. They need a whole special rabbi slaughtering it with a special knife and all these things. Plus, they get rid of the hind quarter of the animal, like literally the back half of the animal, and this whole salting thing. So the price, plus it's just kosher, so like they
right.
know
Just
people, they know,
skyrockets.
yeah,
Yeah.
they know people need to buy it, so they just
Right.
skyrocket the price, and it could be anywhere between double, triple to quadruple the price.
Right.
And there's absolutely no reason why someone who wants to keep kosher needs to engage with that. If you want to keep kosher, just buy kosher animals. Period. End of story. So yeah, this stuff's like very much within reach. It's really like, it doesn't require you becoming some crazed Jew in order to do this. It's really the Torah can be fulfilled no matter where you are in the world, or in whatever time period you're in.
Right. It's really like God made it not insanely difficult for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of
Nice.
that, by the way? That's like their main source is Deuteronomy 12:21. It says, you can check it out if you want. Have you heard that?
And I've not had that in my list before.
That is their primary source, because it's the only time the Torah says do this as I commanded you, and you couldn't
Interesting.
find an explicit location in the Torah that tells you how to slaughter your animals. Except
Right.
again, it's an out of context quote, right? Where it's like,
Mm,
slaughter as I commanded you. Where did God command you to slaughter? Oral Torah, right?
right.
They're yelling at you, right? And then like you actually take a minute and you're like, wait, okay, let's read the verse. And then the whole verse is, you read the whole verse 21. When the place is too far away from you, right? So the place being the tabernacle where God chooses to rest his name. When that place is too far away from you, and you say, I want to eat meat whenever my soul desires, you may slaughter from your cattle and from your flocks that Yahweh has given you as I commanded you, and eat in your gates whenever your soul desires. So where did God command us that we can slaughter and eat from our cattle and from our goats and our sheep? We'll look at verse 15 of the same chapter. Verse 15 says, however, whenever your soul desires to eat meat, you can eat meat in accordance with the blessing that Yahweh has given you in all of your gates and all of your cities, the pure and the impure person together. Which is because when it comes to eating sacrifices from the tabernacle, you have to be ritually pure, right? But if you
Mm,
wanted to eat animals outside of the tabernacle, you don't have to be pure. If it's not a sacrifice, you don't have to be ritually pure. So what God is saying here, now you're allowed to eat all of your animals, whether you're ritually pure or impure, right? And it even continues in verse 22, as you can eat the deer and the hart, so may you eat it, the pure and the imperson together, right? Because the deer and the hart, they are wild animals, and they're not part of the sacrificial system. the sacrificial system of the Torah is you're never going to find a sacrifice that says sacrifice a deer. That's not one of the sacrifices. The
Right, yeah.
sacrifices are always cows, sheep, or goats, right? So
Or
only,
doves. Yeah.
or doves, but birds are in a separate category. So
Right.
if you want to have a look at Leviticus 17, it says very clearly that when it comes to birds and chayot, which is wild animals, all you have to do is just pour out the blood, but you don't have to bring it as an offering. So let me know when you're at Leviticus 17.
Yeah, I'm here.
So read verse 3.
So, any man from the house of Israel. Actually, let me just bring it up on screen.
Mhm.
I keep not doing that. I can do that very easily.
problem.
Share screen. Share. Add. Yeah. So any man from the house of Israel who slaughters an ox or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or who slaughters it outside the camp and has not brought it to the doorway of the tent of meeting to bring it near as an offering to Yahweh before the tabernacle of Yahweh, it will be counted as the blood guiltness to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. The reason is so that the sons of Israel may bring their sacrifices which they were sacrificing in the open field, that they may bring them into Yahweh at the doorway of the tent of meeting to the priest, and sacrifice them as sacrifices of peace offerings to Yahweh.
Mm-hmm. You can read 6 and 7 too.
Okay. And the priest shall splash the blood on the altar of Yahweh at the doorway of the tent of meeting, and offer up the fat and smoke as a soothing aroma to Yahweh. And they shall offer no sacrifice, their sacrifices to the goat demons with which they play the harlot. This shall be a perpetual statute to them throughout their generations.
Okay, so what it's saying is that they would go sacrifice to the goat demons in the field, and God is saying you need to bring your, and go back to verse 3. It says your cows, sheep, and goats, right? Ox, lamb, or goat, right? So it's specifically your domestic animals, which are usually brought as sacrifices. These are the animals you have to bring to the tabernacle as sacrifices. Now, when you look at when you look at birds and wild animals, this is verse 13 of this chapter.
So any man from the sons of Israel, or from the sojourners who sojourn among them, who in hunting catches a beast or a bird which may be eaten, shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth.
All right. So explicitly saying, you're allowed to hunt, but when you hunt these animals that are either birds or wild animals that can be eaten. So these are not the domestic animals that we're discussing that should be brought as sacrifices in the tabernacle. By the way, what is an example of a wild animal? A deer and a hart, right? A deer and a hart. Hart is a male deer. Deer and a hart are wild animals that can be eaten outside of the tabernacle. Over here, we're saying when it comes to birds and wild animals, all you have to do is just get rid of the blood and cover it up with dirt, and then you can eat it outside of the tabernacle. So in Deuteronomy 12, it's telling you now you can eat all of your animals, including cows, sheep, and goats, like you can eat the deer and the hart, the wild animals, the pure and the impure person together. So that's that's the commandment that we're talking about. So as I commanded you is referring back to itself. The Torah is always referring back to itself. But of course, the rabbis want to make it as if it's referring to some external source outside of itself. When, of course, in the Torah, there is no methodology of slaughter. Even hunting would be allowed in this understanding here. So, I mean, again, that's just more encouragement to you that it's not actually hard at all. Let's see. It says in the Bible, you shall do zevicha in your cities. You implies it should be done by an Israelite, and zevicha is a specific slaughter method. Okay, there's just endless assumptions in that. Zavach means to slaughter, right? There's even Karaites say this. Well, again, that's where I plead the fifth. I'm not a Karaite. Okay, I'm reading the Torah. I don't follow Karaite traditions. I follow what the Torah says. Zavach and shachat means slaughter, and they are very often used interchangeably. The Bible says that Israelites should slaughter. That's complete bullshit. You can't eat slaughter of non-Israelites. No, the Torah doesn't say that you can't eat slaughter of non-Israelites. That's ridiculous. The Torah just says Where does it say you can eat non-Israelite slaughters? Where does it say that you can flush the toilet after you take a shit? I don't know. I guess you got to leave the shit in the toilet now because it doesn't say you can flush the toilet.
Yeah.
That's
So
absurd.
this is actually an argument of silence.
Yeah. I mean,
So because it doesn't positively say it one way or the other, you assume that it's then a negative commandment. But that
where
is
does it
again,
say? Yeah. I mean, where does it say that
yeah,
non-Israelites can't slaughter? So I'll ask you the same question. You'll be a Jew. I'll answer you with a question. Where does it say that non-Jews can't slaughter it? It doesn't, right? So the point is, the rabbis actually are the ones who say Jews cannot eat the wine of a non-Jew, the bread of a non-Jew, the milk of a non-Jew, the oil of a non-Jew, the slaughter of a non-Jew, right? So yeah, that's all rabbinic. Rabbinic is about exclusivity, excluding humanity from the picture of life. But in the Torah's vision, none of these statements are ever made. There is no specification on a methodology of slaughter. The term slaughter, by the way, it's so funny because I've talked to Jews and they say, but doesn't slaughter mean by the neck? It's like, no, you only think that because you've been given that definition. But the definition of slaughter just means to kill something, for kill an animal for food. You're slaughtering it, right? And that's actually all that slaughter means. And
right.
so rabbis say you can't ride a bike on Shabbat, but you can flush. It's pikuach nefesh. Yes, exactly. We're dealing with life and death matters if you can't flush. But if you ride a bike, you might come to fix the bike. That's why you can't ride it. You might come to fix it. Um, yeah. So
Uh,
that just gets into the idea of muktzah. Also, the rabbis have, which is something like if it's something that's used for work, you can't even touch it. So imagine you have a hammer on your table and
mm,
you need to move it so you can go eat dinner. You're not allowed to touch
right,
it. And
right,
loophole time for the loophole around the made up law. If you hold it with a shinoi, which is like some sort of strange uh, disfigured way, where if you like pick it up like that to mark the fact that you're not really supposed to be doing this, then it's fine. So again, they make up laws, then they create loopholes around, like absurd laws, then even more absurd loopholes around their absurd laws. That's not what we're here to follow. We're here to be free people under God. We're here to enjoy life. As I told you, that chapter in Deuteronomy is a chapter that is giving permission to Israelites to eat meat whenever their soul desires. And that is
right.
used as a source to say, oh, but what about the rabbi's secret way of slaughtering that Moses told Joshua and Joshua told the elders in their ear, the big secret tradition, right? This is not a serious argument.
Right. So no, it says that you can't eat meat unless you bring it to the temple, but you may slaughter from your flocks when you are far. No permission from the flocks of others.
Okay. All right.
So again, but if you're saying that okay, you have to bring it to the temple, um, what about the people in Dan that are way too far away from the temple to actually bring anything to the temple? Are they not allowed to eat meat? Or you say, oh well, you're allowed to make of your flocks, but what if you are buying meat in a
Well,
marketplace?
first of all, this man or woman should know that the Torah actually allows non-Jews to bring sacrifices to the tabernacle. That's explicit. It
It's
says
true.
non-Jews
True.
cannot bring blemished sacrifices. However, they could bring regular sacrifices. So, by that definition, all people are the same. You may bring sacrifices to God, but you may not eat the sacrifices outside of the temple, but you could eat non-sacrificial meat outside of the temple. The idea that it's saying your flocks is because you usually don't eat other people's flocks. What about other Israelites' flocks? Huh? That's not your
Right.
flocks. Um,
Yeah.
again,
Which they're also able to partake in Passover too, as a Gentile. So
yeah, as long as
if you're
they're
able to partake
circumcised.
of like the holiest holiday, other than I guess Yom Kippur, but like if you're able to participate in one of the three major festivals, why not eat their meat?
Yeah, and remember, this is about animals, okay? So it's about these animals you're allowed to eat whenever your soul desires,
Mm,
okay? So it's referring to what comes your way, like what you own. You're not just going stealing other people's flocks, okay? But the idea that all people in Israel are now given permission to eat meat outside of the temple and eat specifically domestic animals outside of the temple. Um,
uh, this one got
it's
me.
a good question. It's a good question. It's a
Yes.
question if it's electricity or fire. I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah, no, I
yeah.
mean it does go that deep. But like look at these arguments. Like first of all, why do you have an agenda to exclude non-Jews from your life? Like literally this entire world is made up of human beings. There's billions of people. the Torah never says these things, and you have to literally do mental gymnastics to come to the conclusion that you're not allowed to eat meat that was slaughtered by a non-Jew because it says your flocks. Oh, because this is not talking about the people of Israel and the people in the land of Israel. By the way, like everyone in Israel, including sojourners, has the same law. All right. So when it's referring to the people of Israel, it's referring to the people of the land. All right. And that includes people that are not even Jewish, as long as they're following the laws of the Torah. But regardless, we don't live in the land of Israel, so we're not being spoken to as Israelites who live as a united people in a land. We're being spoken to as human beings who live scattered across the world. And ultimately, the message here is clear that God is saying you're allowed to eat meat, animals that in Leviticus 11 are already clarified which animals you are allowed to eat and which ones you're not allowed to
Right.
eat, as long as it's within that list of permitted animals. The methodology of slaughter doesn't matter. The person who slaughters it doesn't matter. The place that you slaughter it doesn't matter. What matters is that you get rid of the blood. So you let the blood go out like water. You don't sit there drinking blood. You don't do no satanic blood rituals. Just eat
Make
meat.
blood sausages. Yeah.
Yeah, make blood sausages, black pudding. That's obviously
Hmm.
blood. What's
Right.
interesting is in Leviticus 17, it said anyone who doesn't kill their animals the way God wants you, like to bring it to the temple in that instance, is like you're spilling blood, which I find to be interesting, which is like if you kill an animal in vain, there is bloodshed there. So I think that's interesting.
Hmm.
I mean, it's obviously not murder, punishable by death, but there's bloodshed for someone who
Right.
kills an animal in vain. So I think that's the source that you can't just like kill animals.
Right. Yeah. God loves all life. It's kind of crazy. It's also why you're supposed to like. I mean, we talked about this one of the other streams we did together, but like the purpose of the sacrifice is to make you feel bad. It's
Yeah.
not to make you feel like willy nilly about the death of something. Like killing the animal with your own hands and feeling it die as it's struggling against your blade, that is supposed to make you feel the weight of your sin. That is supposed to make you repent and not do it anymore and then live according to the law in relationship with God and with your fellow man. It's supposed to do those things. It's supposed to be heavy. Uh, and then people are just entirely flippant about it, especially when by the time you get to Isaiah and Isaiah's description of what they do, and they just don't care whatsoever. They're still doing the sacrifices, but they do it in vain, and they even do the sacrifices in vain at the temple. And God calls them out and he says, I hate it. I hate you fulfilling the Torah by just going through the motions and doing that stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that would explain why all this stuff is gone because, we clearly can't even make sense of any of this. So what does it have to do? Like the last thing we need to be doing is giving God pleasing aromas of fats, Judaism is more ethical than Islam simply because they only make their own people pay.
uh,
Okay. So Islam's trying to enforce it on the world.
oh, just on the Jews and Christians. Everyone else has to be converted or slaughtered. So
Mm,
we're the people of the book are the only ones that are able to become dhimmis, which are the second class citizens, basically the slaves of Islam. And
nice.
then they have actual slaves, which is mostly black people, because they Muhammad was super racist. He called black people raisin heads and considered them worth like half that or even less than that of a Arab or a white person. Um, so super racist, and then just like a perpetuated eternity. And they use the same stupid thing of in I believe it's both the Talmud and the Midrash, but I know it's for a fact it's in Bereshit Rabbah. But it's the whole thing of you weren't allowed to have intercourse on the Ark of Noah, which is kind of dumb in and of
Hmm.
itself. But it says that Ham did do this, and so did the crow, and so did the dog. So the crow got punished in that it spits. I don't know if I've ever seen a crow spit, but who knows. And then the dog is punished in that has to wear a collar. It's subjugated to man. And then Ham was punished in that his skin was turned black for
Hmm.
having intercourse on the ark.
Yeah.
Not necessarily procreating, which is what apparently God didn't want to have to happen, which is why, but uh no, specifically black skin. And then that also, according to Islam, made them then be worthy of being slaves, which
Hmm.
is pretty messed up in and of itself.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's just about
yeah.
it. As whenever you can put bans on intercourse, the religious leaders get excited. They say that Joseph didn't have intercourse during the 7 years of famine as well. That's why
Yeah.
he didn't have sons past Ephraim and Manasseh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I mean, obviously, people who like control, sexual control is the most powerful tool of control in the world. So, if they got your balls, they got you. You know, like
Yeah.
it's pretty much
Uh,
the standard here. So, yeah, I mean, they also claim because Noah cursed Ham after he laughed at his nakedness. So that's also
mm, yeah.
they turned black from that curse. But yeah, I mean that's obviously just a ridiculous thing to go there based off of skin color, and then to decide that you know exactly um, who the descendants of Ham are and how and why they're cursed, and now it's your job to mistreat them as human beings because you're so righteous. You're upholding Noah's curse to his son. It's like, all right, you're please, you're killing me with your righteousness here. Yeah, but quite literally, I mean, you know, these people are willing to kill for how righteous they are,
Right.
and it's like you're not helping anyone. You know, like these people are still human beings. It was also Noah's curse; it wasn't God's curse. And
Right.
if you become a cursed person, you'll be cursed by God. You know, that's beyond Noah,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah. That reminded me of one of my favorite passages in the Talmud of "It is Torah and I must learn."
oh, of
So
course,
it's in Berchot 62a. It is taught in Brita and Tractate Derech Eretz that Rabbi Akiva said, I once entered the bathroom after my teacher, Rabbi Hosha, and I learned three things from observing his behavior. I learned that one should not defecate while facing east and west because you're not supposed to face towards Jerusalem, but rather um, facing north and south. I learned that one should never uncover himself while standing, but while sitting in the interest of modesty, even if he's alone because of the demons. And I learned that one should not wipe his with his right hand, but with his left hand, which is also incorporated into Islam. So all three of these are incorporated into Islam, hilariously enough. Ben Azai, a student Rabbi Akiva said to him, you were impertinent to your teacher to the extent that you observe that much. He replied, it is Torah, and I must learn. And then this exact same thing is repeated again with Rabbi Akiva and his student. Then it happens again, but on a similar note, the Gemara relates that Rav Kana entered and lay beneath Rav's bed. He heard Rav chanting and laughing with his wife and seeing to his needs, I have in relations with her. Rav Kana said to Rav, the mouth of Abba, Rav, is like one who has never eaten a cooked dish. His behavior was lustful. So he was like doing dirty talk to his wife while they were in bed. Rav said to him, Kana, you are here? Leave, as this is an undesirable mode of behavior, is an understatement that I can't overstate. And Rav kind of said to him, it is Torah, and I must learn. What is Torah? And I feel like this all the time. Like whenever I'm reading these things, is like, what is Torah? If
yeah,
Torah is supposed to be the oral Torah from from Sinai, if Torah is supposed to be the written Torah, if Torah is just the way of being with the rabbis, because you
yeah,
get a sense of whatever a rabbi does, it automatically becomes true and becomes good and becomes real for them. Which again, we get that in Islam with Muhammad, but the sages do this where the sages themselves become morality for the people. So in order to actually learn Torah, you have to then study every aspect of a prophet, or not prophet, but like a sage or a rabbi's life to understand what you're supposed to be doing. And that just
yeah.
seems kind of like nonsense
Yeah,
when we have,
I just saw the
yeah.
next question in the Gemara that was from the page was how do you know you're only allowed to wipe your ass with your left hand and not with your right hand? Right. So I mean, yeah, that's Torah. It's all Torah, right? At this point, Torah has lost its definition, as you're pointing out. That's really the problem here. Is if Torah is defined as the revealed word of God to Moses, the five books of Moses, that's something I can get behind. That's something you can get behind. But if yeah, rabbis banging their wives is oral Torah. Yeah.
Rabbi's P sitting down. What more proof do you need? This is the proof. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite. This whole pest, like Berako has some really like bangers of stupidity. This is one of my favorites too. So as you mentioned, why must one not wipe himself with his right hand, but with his left? Rabbi said, because the Torah was given with the right hand, as it is stated, at his right hand was a fiery law onto them. Entirely out of context. But it's like, oh, well, now you have to wipe with your left hand.
Yeah.
And then the other one said, it's, oh no, it's because you eat with your right hand, therefore you should wipe with your left, which is, sensible, at least like, hey, um, the view is you have to wipe with an odd number of wipes, because demons like even numbers. So you have to wipe with either one wipe, three wipes, five wipes, seven wipes, or nine wipes. You can't use an even number of wipes. And there is even debate. I know in the Islamic version, you can only wipe with water, like if you spray it away with like a bidet, or with your hand and a stone. So you have to get a smooth stone and then like carve it out of you, which is really messed up. But I think there's a similar thing with the rabbinic view as well. But they definitely have the odd number of wipes, and you have to wipe with your hand in a very specific way. So hey, don't eat with that hand because that's the hand that you wipe with. Uh, but it it's so silly. Oh, then you tie your phylacteries with it, so therefore you should use your
Yeah.
left.
What about the
Yeah,
left hand is where you have the phylacteries on? Or-
right.
Do you notice how you notice how the paragraph starts off with the conclusion, which is you must
Right,
only wipe with
right.
your right hand, and now we have to give justifications for that, and that's really the quintessential point of rabbinic thinking, which is the conclusion was already made, and now we have to figure out why that's the case. So you can never actually argue with the conclusion. You start with the conclusion, and then whatever interpretation you come up with doesn't really matter because it's all leading to the same conclusion anyway, right? Which is just another
Hmm.
way to undermine critical thinking and research and debate and argument because you you can never debate the conclusion. The conclusion was already given to you, and now it's your job
Oh yeah.
to prove its confirmation bias.
So I did a 5 hour stream going over every single passage in the Talmud about demons because the demonology of rabbinic Judaism is the same demonology of Islam. So I just like showing the parallels there for the Talmudic dilemma. There's a lot of things in Skayam 119. It's like 112 to 119. Like that whole section is about demons and witches and magic and witchcraft and all the things that they can do to you. But Better Call also has a bunch of them. So anyone who is modest in the bathroom will be saved from three things: from snakes, from scorpions, and from demons. And some say even that his dreams will be settling for him. So you're saved from demons if you're modest in the bathroom. The like what you do in the bathroom is really like the most immodest thing you can do other than like intercourse in public. Uh
Yeah.
who cares? Especially if you're alone.
Yeah. Also,
Then
like,
it
what
goes
does
into all the
modesty even
demon
mean? I mean,
stuff.
I'll tell you just
Yeah.
by the way, like in later rabbinic literature in the halacha books, they say that you're not even allowed to pull down your pants fully. You have to just reveal like the small portion of like just enough to get it out, right? And all these things. Like, what? Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to point out, like when I was a young teenager, I didn't have sex ed. I didn't have not that I think sex ed should be taught in schools, but the point is I had no awareness of sex, right? And so the only place that I could look was the books of the Torah and the Talmud, right? Because the Torah talks about sex and the Talmud talks about sex. And so I found the chapter about sex in the Halacha book. It's called the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is kind of a mini Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch is like the ultimate law book for Jews. Of course, it's not the Torah.
Right.
I don't know why the Torah is not the ultimate law book for Jews. And Shulchan Aruch, written 2,000 years later, is, or 1,500 years later, is the ultimate law book. Then there's the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is the abridged version of the Shulchan Aruch, which kind of has
Right.
the boiled down rulings, and it's a very respected book. And I'm not saying everyone agrees with this ruling because, of course, within all of these arguments, there's a million different arguments and opinions. But this is an accepted book, and people read it and they really believe in it. And it says in the chapter of sex that you are not allowed to have sex with the light on. You're not allowed to have sex in a room where there's light. You need to cover yourself up. You need to completely be in the dark. You need to talk words of Torah as you're sleeping with your wife, as you're like penetrating, like talk words of Torah. And like again, words of Torah means like,
Hmm.
so the Rebbe said in yeshiva today, and like as you're going for it. And it says if you were to do oral sex, that is an abomination, and you're
Right.
breaking the
Same with
Torah.
anal.
Well, yeah, which is
Yeah.
breaking the Torah, which says do not make yourself abominable. So I mean,
Hmm.
who's revealing themselves to be like a totally vanilla little faggot here? Like, oh, I'm sorry, pussies are disgusting, right? So okay, so you're you're a fool and you're telling me that it's disgusting when you're like, point is, when I realized that, he says they say you're not allowed to see your wife naked. And
Right. Yeah.
we were talking
Yeah.
about that last time when you said the first time the man saw his wife naked, he started waxing poetic, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
was
It's
what you said. Of
super
course,
based. Yeah.
a man being able to see his wife's nudity is just like the greatest thing on
It's a
earth,
blessing. It's a wonderful. Yeah.
the greatest, right? And I said, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to see my wife naked. And that was like the first thing that occurred to me as like a 14, 15-year-old kid. And I was devastated. I was like, what am I even like, what is this even for? Like,
Right.
what is
Yeah.
life even about? Right. And I realized that if I would go through that system, that's where I would end up with. I'd end up with a wife that is not my wife, that bows to the authority of the rabbi, that I cannot even see her nudity. I cannot sleep with her when I want to. I'm sure you know the laws of Nida have been completely taken out of context, where they have you separated from your wife for almost 2 weeks out of every month. You can't even touch her. You
Mm-hmm.
can't even pass something to her
Mm-hmm.
hand. She's got
You
to go
can't like
immerse.
cuddle her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can. She's got to immerse in the mikvah. They also give every
Separate
woman,
beds.
yeah,
Yeah.
separate beds. They created the mikvah thing, which is not a Torah concept. They also said that you have to start counting 7 days after she stops bleeding, which is
My wife was listening from across the room, suddenly pipes up, yeah, the rabbis are all basically gay.
pretty much. I mean, pretty much. They're a bunch of boys who like hanging out with each other a little too often, and
Incels. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
remember I was talking to a rabbi about like periods, and he's like, "Can we just stop talking about it? It's so disgusting." And I was like, "Okay, well, there you go." They have an entire tractate this thick about periods, and they're sitting there like, "What if it's a spot? What if it's a half a spot?" When you look at Leviticus
Mm-hmm.
15, it says a woman who has blood flow for many days. That is the definition
Mm-hmm.
of a period and an irregular period.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time you have to count 7 clean days after the period is over is if she's a zava, which is a woman on an irregular period. Anita is
Right.
only a total of 7 days from when she starts bleeding, right? So they've
Right.
given every woman every month the law of a zava, and now you have women who are separated almost
So
2 weeks
gay.
out of
Right.
every
Right.
month,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah, that's
And again,
ridiculous.
yeah, I mean, so it's just highly
And you also have
unfortunate.
to end early in order to avoid it as well. So you get like a week with your wife. It's not even like full 2 weeks. It's like a week and a half at most. Because
It's
you can't
devastating.
start, you have to be worried about it as well. Ironically, that does actually make you have your first intercourse during ovulation if you wait 2 weeks from the onset of period. So actually like increases your fertility rates if you're like waiting and have like a anyway. Um
Yeah, but again, that's not
yeah.
that's I like that's digressing. At that point, it's like that's what they use to cope. Like they have the conclusion,
Right.
and now they're like,
Right.
well, it's good for intimacy if you take
It's
a
good.
break,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's good for ovulation. And it's like, all right, like please, I can also fuck on ovulation too. All right, like this is insane, right? The point is that at the end of the day, we're talking about a completely made up system, and it's harmful. It's genuinely harmful. You have rabbis who are looking at women's panties. Okay, this is not a joke. They're sitting there inspecting blood from women. Like you're telling me rabbis are sitting there looking at other men's wives' blood stains from their vaginas because they need to see what kind of spot is it. When I already told you explicitly, the Torah says Leviticus 15. I can even give you the source. Blood flow for many days. That constitutes a period. And they're sitting here obsessing over spots, right?
Right.
This is not
Yeah.
real. This is
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. Here, it's Leviticus 15:19. A woman who has blood flow for multiple days. Sorry, that's the regular period. The irregular period is Leviticus 15:25. A woman who has blood flow for many days, not at the time of her period. That's an irregular period, right? So not spots. And they're sitting here obsessing over spots, and they have an entire tractate of Nida where they go over that. Mikvah, completely man-made, completely manufactured. And so again, when you
Mm.
start to see that, oh, all of this burdensome restrictions of Judaism are not the Torah. All of these bad ideologies of Judaism are not the Torah. Well, now it ain't that bad to actually be an Israelite who's Torah observant, because it doesn't take you away from life. It doesn't take you away from your wife. It doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
you away from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It actually brings you closer. It brings you closer together to your people, to humanity, to your marriage, to your children, and it makes you a responsible person, someone who's able to say no when God says to refrain, but it doesn't mean that
Right.
now you have to follow everything that the rabbis say, because really it's supposed to just be 7 days out of the month. And during those 7 days, the explicit prohibitions are you're not allowed to uncover her nakedness and you're not allowed to have sex with her. Beyond that,
Right.
the only thing that would happen to you if you touched her or laid in bed with her is you'd become impure. Well, shocker, you become impure when you have sex. You become impure when you come in contact with a corpse. In fact, we're all impure all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
want to know
You
how
just
you
have to
want
be
to
cleansed before you go to the temple. That's the only thing.
exactly
Yeah.
the whole point
Right.
of ritual purity is so you can go to the temple, and all of us are
Right.
impure with the impurity of death because we don't even have the red heifer and the priest by Torah law. And again, if you
Right.
wanted to purify yourself, what is the purification process? Wash your body with water and launder your clothing with water, and you'll be pure in the evening. Okay? So
Mhm.
all you'd have to do is take a shower and launder your clothing, and you'd be pure. Right? And so
Yep.
it's not even that complex. You don't have to go to some special formulated mikvah with rabbinic intention that costs $95,000. Like that's not in the
The
Torah.
special waters, though, they're special waters. So there is
Magic.
also like prohibitions that you didn't mention on marriage that I thought it was hilarious the
Mhm.
first time I read it in the Talmud. There's one rabbi who said that he only woke up his wife at midnight so that there would be no woman in the streets for hours, so that he wouldn't even be thinking about another woman. So he'd wake up his wife from dead sleep to have intercourse with her, which awful. Like, especially if your wife is not like a night person, she's a morning person. She's gonna be grumpy. It's not gonna be good, especially because women like take time to actually enjoy it. You can't just like wake up on a dime and do it. At least most women don't. So like the whole idea of, oh well, I have to do it only at midnight. I have to wake up my wife to do it, and I can't think about any woman during it, which is that is a good idea by in and of itself. But it's to such extreme to avoid it. And then he doesn't even uncover her nakedness, as you mentioned. But the way he describes it is he takes the sheets and he just like uncovers and like makes a little hole, like a little window to penetrate. So he's not actually even looking at her nakedness, even for the hole. He's just opening it up enough. So he's like having intercourse with a ghost, like like a 90s movie,
Is
Ghost
that
in the Sheet.
okay? But is that when she's on her period?
That's anytime.
Oh, anytime. Okay, so that's where the hole in the sheet thing comes from.
Yeah.
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 Oh, there you go. Right. So I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
again,
so
it's
stupid.
it's really all like avoidance. It's this. There's this just this vast divide between men and
Satanic.
women. Yeah. Well, it is. It
Yeah.
is satanic because it's a divide between men and women. When God says
Mm-hmm.
man and woman become one flesh, flesh. By the way, the word
Mm-hmm.
used is flesh, not soul, not spirit. Flesh. Right. Very
Flesh. Mm-hmm.
deliberate, physical,
Sexual. Yeah.
sexual implication. When God says become one flesh with your woman, they say separate from your woman. They say let's put up walls between men and women. Men and women can't dance together. Husbands and wives
Mm-hmm.
got men got to go to the synagogue 3 times a day, be with the boys. The women got to go to the mikvah with the girls, and it's a whole like you're
Mm.
spending more time with the same sex than with
Right.
your spouse
Your
who's of the
spouse.
opposite sex.
Right.
And again, I understand why they're worried about promiscuity and
Right.
adultery,
Right.
but the solution to promiscuity and adultery is not celibacy and sexual repression, right? It's giving people the opportunity to have free sex in a proper holy environment, in the environment
Right.
of marriage, right? And so instead they push it off endlessly. They keep you completely separated, and there's no actual way to bridge that gap. And then one day, time to get married. We'll set you up with someone who we think is good for you. You don't. It's like arranged marriage. Of course, they wouldn't call it arranged marriage because you get to date a little bit, but you're not allowed to touch each other when you date. You're not allowed to be alone together when you date. So you're not even allowed to cross any physical boundaries in order to become comfortable with that person. And again, I'm not saying there's no utility to having sexual purity. I
Right.
I, I think
Yeah.
this world, I think it's almost like when coming from orthodoxy and then witnessing secularism, it's two vast extremes, and it's two sides of the same coin, though, right? Usually that's how extremes are. One extreme and the other extreme, even though they look so different, they're really the same thing. Radical sexual repression and radical sexual expression are both unhealthy and excessive and negative. And I mean, I can
Mm-hmm.
sit here and talk about how evil the secular, promiscuous, adulterous culture is because it's literally disgusting and evil beyond belief. So I think that secular culture has a lot to learn from sexual purity and sex in marriage and all these things. However, the reason why religion has failed in that arena is because instead of opening up sex and showing its beauty in the context of marriage, they've repressed it and prohibited it, and created endless restrictions on it. By the way, like to that effect of the rabbis sleeping with non-Jewish women, the rabbis claim that the laws of Nida don't apply to non-Jewish women because I guess they're not human females. So therefore, they
Right.
say that you're allowed to sleep with
I can
them
gut him
whenever.
like a fish. Yeah.
Yeah, you can gut them like a fish, and you can also sleep with them whenever you want. So apparently it's
Hmm.
like Jewish practice that if Jews wanted to have casual sex, they would just go sleep with non-Jewish women because, there's no strings attached. They're not humans anyway. So like, I mean, they're not, I don't know. I guess they're
Real
human,
humans, right? Yeah,
but they're not like,
yeah,
their bodies don't work the way Israelite women, like
right.
their periods are not, uh, you can engage with those periods, no problem. Anyhow, point is, a a man told me that he was talking to his rabbi on Purim, because Purim's the big hedonist day where everyone gets so drunk that they just start spewing their innermost secrets. And the rabbi
Golden calf
grabbed
worship. Yeah.
yeah, and the rabbi grabbed him and he was like, "I'm telling you, my one regret in life is that I didn't fuck more non-Jewish women before I got married." It's like, okay,
That's like that's like
whoa.
a like isn't fornication death sentence in the Torah?
Well, I mean,
Like so
fornication.
you'd
What do you mean
you'd
by
automatically get
fornication?
married. Well, fornication is sex outside of marriage, like sex before you're married.
I mean,
Um,
it's not punishable by death,
it's
no.
not punishable by death, no, but
But
you
but
are
you
like
would be
instantly
obligated.
married.
Well, if she's a virgin, yeah. So
Right.
you'd be obligated to marry a virgin if you seduced her and took her virginity, which, by
Right.
the way, obviously shows that God's vision for the world is that women are not losing their virginity outside of marriage, right? And
Yep.
so, if virginity equals marriage, then you wouldn't have sex with someone just to get rid of your virginity. You'd have sex with the
Yep.
man who you want to take your virginity and you want to spend the rest of your life with, at the threat of death, by the way, breaking that
Yep.
covenant. So I think people might take relationships a lot more seriously if there was the dread of God over that, and the understanding of like true commitment and what that actually means and what sex actually means, because uh, sex has been cheapened so much by
Oh
secular
yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
The fact that people have body counts of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, like we're
Hundreds. Yeah.
like hundreds, right? That's insane.
Evil.
That's
Yep.
insanely evil. And it cheapens everything that life is about. And again, if we followed God's law, we would never be doing that. We would absolutely never be doing that.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah,
passage of the virgin was not found to be a virgin. Yeah.
yes, that's specifically when she claims to be a virgin, though. So I
Right.
think that does have to be clarified. In that passage is a woman who's claiming to be a virgin and then it turns out not to be a virgin. But there are women who are
Mhm.
not virgins, for example. I mean, divorced women, and there's even a scenario if a man sleeps with a virgin woman and then her father, like she's obviously young, so her father doesn't agree to the marriage,
Yeah.
then he
He
has
still
to
has to
pay.
pay the dowry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has to pay a
But
dowry, but he doesn't marry her. In which case,
right.
she's known to not be a virgin, and she could still get married. She just can't claim to be a virgin. So there's something about the claiming to be a virgin,
Mm.
that is
Like
that
a
is
false
worthy of,
witness, false testimony. Yeah.
yeah, to a degree,
Yeah.
yeah. hmm And again, that's very severe, and people will get uncomfortable by the severity of that. But again, I'll tell you what makes me uncomfortable: the complete lack of value for virginity, the complete lack of
Hmm.
value for sexuality and femininity and masculinity, where men are sleeping with thousands of women and women are sleeping with thousands of men, and this is considered to be great and glorified and desirable. It's
And
literally,
feminism. Yeah. It's
yeah,
degrading and evil and wicked.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's degrading to everyone involved, and like the reality is that for all the negative things I have to say about Orthodox Judaism, I have learned a ton from Orthodox Judaism. I mean, that's undeniable. So, I mean, we have to
They do
acknowledge
have a
that as
little bit
well.
of wisdom. There's definitely wisdom within the Talmud.
So,
It's
fellas,
just also
cheers.
overshadowed by a lot of stupidity.
Yeah. Well, you got to
Um,
take the wheat from the chaff.
it's true.
Welcome, Ash.
Ash.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right, good, because it wasn't doing that thing where it moves the icon.
How's it going?
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
Doing pretty good. I was wondering if you could pull up on the screen Masechet Avodah Zarah 17a, while we're talking about the promiscuity and sexual control of the rabbis. Because this one is probably the funniest thing in the entire Talmud. You scroll down to where I think it's like 12. There. So you want to start reading from there, and it's a few paragraphs, but it's just
Yeah, that's
really,
fine.
really funny.
I also have the bathroom story, 'cause the bathroom story is really funny. The Gemara asks, and is it correct that one who repents of the sin of forbidden sexual intercourse does not die? But isn't it taught in a Burita that they say about Rabbi Elzar ben Derrida that he was so promiscuous that he did not leave one prostitute in the world with whom he did not engage in sexual intercourse. Once he heard that there was one prostitute in one of the cities overseas, he would take a purse full of dinars as her payment. He took a purse full of dinars and went and crossed 7 rivers to reach her. When they engaged in the matters to which they were accustomed, an euphemism for intercourse. Thanks for that. And I couldn't figure that out. She passed wind and said, just as this past wind will not return to
Very
its place,
wise
so
prostitute.
too Elazar dead will not be accepted in repentance, even if he were to try to repent. So she farted after intercourse.
Hot. Can you
And
go back to the
hot.
beginning of?
But
Can you go back to
eventually
the
he,
beginning?
Like, cries between the mountains, and like his soul leaves his body, and he repents, and he's forgiven, and he's all good with the rabbis.
Well, it took death.
There's not a prostitute in the world with whom he did not engage.
I love that he still gets the title rabbi.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
the
he
Alexander the
did,
Great of
'cause he repented.
prostitutes.
He repented, you know.
He repented. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently there's no limit to the things you can do. Yeah, that's a lot.
Isn't this idolatry? Sun and
Yeah.
moon pray for mercy on my behalf. That
Yeah, this
They
is
said
while
to-
this is while they're making fun of Catholics and Orthodox.
Hmm.
pray before we pray for mercy on your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf, as it is stated, then the moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed. Not at all what that means. He said, stars and constellations pray for mercy on my behalf. They said to him, before we pray mercy for your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf. As stated, and all the host of heaven shall molder away. Again, not at all what that means.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So he's praying to the sun, moon, and stars. It's like when they pray to their dead rabbis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then God speaks and says that he's destined for life in the world to come.
What are you
Mhm.
talking about? Israel?
What?
Yaakov Avinu loy meis.
Ah, he didn't die. Like
Now,
It's like-
as a,
it's like
as a-
Jesus.
as a Catholic, I believe that the saints are alive in heaven, and we can ask for their intercession. But I don't believe the rabbis are.
That is wild. Okay. Yeah. The one I had is not nearly as well, I guess it is still pretty fun. So there is a bathroom, and this is about the demons will attack you if you are not modest in the bathroom. It says there was a particular bathroom in the city of Tiberias where when 2 would enter it, even during the day, they would be harmed by demons. So there's this haunted bathroom. When Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi would each enter alone, they were not harmed. The sages said to them, aren't you afraid? Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi said to them, we have learned through tradition to avoid danger in the bathroom is conduct yourself with modesty and silence, so you can't grunt or anything. The tradition to end suffering is with silence and prayer. Because of fear of demons in bathrooms was pervasive, the Gemara relates Abaya's mother raised a lamb to accompany him to the bathroom. The Gemara objects she should have raised a goat for him. The Gemara responds a goat could be interchanged with a goat demon. But since the demon and the goat are called Seder, they were afraid to bring a goat in the place frequented by demons. Before Rava became the head of the yeshiva, before like the school, his wife, the daughter of Rav Hasida, would rattle a nut in a copper vessel for him. This was in order to fend off demons when he was in the bathroom. After he was chosen to preside as head of the yeshiva, he required an additional degree of protection, so she constructed a window for him opposite where he would defecate and placed her hand upon his head. He was so terrified, he would get his wife to rub his head while pooping of demons.
God.
That's epic.
The head of a yeshiva.
Mhm.
Rava, like, but it's funny too because it's like she's super loud and that's keeping the demons away, and then the other people are like super quiet and that's what's keeping the demons away. So I
Mhm.
love the
Different
contradiction
schools of-
between
different
those
schools of
two.
thought.
Right? It's oh man, there's so much stuff
like-
that
It's like you play dead with the grizzly bear, or do you try to scare it?
Yeah. We'll never know.
There's so many things like that. The more I read the Talmud, the more stuff I find like that, the more I'm like, how do people take this seriously? I don't even mean that as an insult. It's kind of baffling to me that there are some statements in it that I'm like, um, that seems like really stupid superstition, especially all the stuff with like the demonology and the witches and all of the craziness that you have to do in that. Like the whole idea of you can't walk alone at night, otherwise demons will get you. So in order to avoid walking in alone at night and demons getting you, you put up one thumb, you put up another thumb, and then you grab your thumbs and you say to your thumbs, "You and I are three." So then you're not in a pair and you're not by yourself. So you and I are three. And then if a demon says you and I are four,
The
you say,
ultimate
"Oh well, you and I
rabbinic
are
loophole.
five." And then it keeps going and keeps going. And then if you get to 101 with the demon will explode.
Ash,
But why do you take that seriously?
one of the craziest ones was the one you told me about the woman on the barrel.
Yeah.
If she's not a virgin, the wine will
Yeah,
come
that's
through her open her
The
removed
fumes will
hymen
come through
there.
and you can smell the Cabernet on her breath.
Oh my god, that's the best one. That might take the cake.
You know what's funny though? I
Oh,
pointed this out to people. There's certain rabbis in the Talmud that, although they are like originators of like important doctrine in Judaism and important customs, they're weirdly made out to be like deviants and weird or called heretics at points, and they have to repent. And what's really interesting is the one that you see that with the wine barrel is Rabbi Gamliel, and I think the reason they do it is like because he's canonized as a saint in the Catholic and Orthodox churches. I think there's like a demeaning of him, like, oh look, this guy, like he's just like everyone else, and we can make fun of him and demean him and say that he's done these weird things and so on. I think it's related to a polemic against Christianity, if I'm not mistaken. It's the
Rabbi
same with Eliezer,
Gamliel,
like he's
they're saints in the Catholic Church.
Rabbi Gamliel is a saint in the Catholic and Orthodox churches
Really?
for his
How did that happen?
yeah. Basically,
Paul?
he's in the New Testament saying that I forget what the exact quote is. You can still hear me, right?
Mhm.
yeah, we can hear you. Paul's a student of his, so that might that's what my brain went to. I don't know
Mm.
what beyond that.
Paul's a student of Rabbi Gamliel.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Before he
Yeah, so
encountered.
Gamliel basically
Yeah.
addressed the Sanhedrin and says, "Men of Israel, consider carefully what you intend to do to these men." Some time ago,
In
Theudas
Acts.
appeared,
Yeah.
claiming to be somebody, and about 400 men rallied to him. He was killed, and all his followers dispersed, and it came to nothing. After him, Judas the Galilean appeared in those days of the census and led a band of people in revolt. He too was killed, and his followers were scattered. Therefore, in the present case, I advise you, leave these men alone, let them go. For if their purpose of activity is of human origin, it will fail, but if it is from God, you will not be able to stop these men. You will only find yourself fighting against God.
Wait, so does it explicitly say that it's Rabbi Gamliel? Because I've
Yeah.
read that. I didn't. Oh, I don't recall seeing that it was Rabbi Gamliel. Okay,
Yeah, a
interesting.
Pharisee named Gamaliel.
And is that
Oh,
Acts like 5 or 4?
I think it was Acts.
You know what chapter
5.
that is?
Yeah.
I just read that. I just read that story. Okay, I didn't register that the Pharisee
He's
Gamliel
canonized
was.
as a saint for basically protecting the Christian movement.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Wow.
And then the other famous one is Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who's like, "Hey, I learned this great teaching from this guy who's a student of Jesus the Nazarene. You guys want to hear about it?" And they're like, "What?" And they call him a heretic and make him repent.
Well, I mean, if there's a good quote in the Talmud, there can definitely be a good quote in the New Testament also.
It's true.
I mean, you can always find like there's kernels of wisdom in the Talmud for sure. There's a good statement they have.
Yeah, eat sardines; they're good for your eyes.
What's that?
Eat sardines; they're good for your eyes. It says that in the Talmud.
Fish oil, huh?
Yeah.
But they say he who is cruel to the kind will be kind to the cruel.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that. Someone who runs away from honor, honor will run after him. There's a lot of like
Mhm.
common wisdom, good statements. But
Yeah, but those things in the Talmud that are good statements, you also find they're not unique to the Talmud. You find those in Wisdom of Solomon, in Sirach, in Proverbs, in Ecclesiastes. So it's biblical concepts that they're
Of course.
agreeing with.
Yeah, I mean, it's biblical concepts, philosophical concepts, rational, common sense. Like whenever what they're saying, I mean, it pretty much boils down to if what they're saying is in line with biblical theology, then it's good, and if it's not in line with it, then it's bad. So that's pretty much how it always works. Also, I think the quote was, "He who is kind to the cruel will be cruel to the kind." So it's like a caution against having misplaced compassion, where you're kind to cruel people. You're like, oh, like poor murderer, he must have had a traumatic childhood, right? You'll end up being cruel to the kind, something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's the whole point. Is wisdom really is universal. God is universal. So if we can come to an understanding where we can actually make this make sense for everyone, we're making progress. But insofar as we have to sit here debating irrelevant things, we're not going to get very far.
Right.
Is it Purim today? I totally missed that.
Honestly, I was thinking the same thing because I kept hearing people talk about it. It's next week on the 3rd. It's March 3rd. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Well, Ash, how have you been recovering from being mopped on the floor by Yitzchak / Ellie?
Yitzhak slash Ellie slash Itzhak. Yeah, that was ridiculous. I've had some people, Orthodox Jews who watch some of my streams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, they were so mean because I grew up hearing this, and they're like, "Oh, like silly Balchuva, like what does he know?"
Right.
Like
yeah.
Like, like don't listen to him.
Yeah, the Baal Tshuva never knows. But again, I mean, that's really just a deflection, because at the end of the day, his arguments were not that much worse than what you'd hear from an Orthodox rabbi, because it really does come down to that. It comes down to this endless subjectivity, the idea that the word of God is unclear, and the only ones who can clarify it are a bunch of contradictory opinions from rabbis, and like that's not really a defensible position. And he's really just appealing to authority, to orthodoxy. This is how it's always been. I trust them, so there's a lot of trust.
Which is
there.
a wacky claim, because it's historically provable that it's not how it's always been.
Of course, how it's always been for 2,000 years, or and even within those 2,000 years, as you pointed out, Maimonides was a pariah and a heretic for, his lifetime and good time after that. So somehow, someone who's considered a heretic becomes the new Moses. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, all the mystical rabbis too, like the Rabbi Luzzatto, who wrote Path of the Just and all these mystical ideas, was like exiled from 3 cities, 3 countries by the Jewish community. Yeah. A lot of the mystics, the Arizal, all these guys, like they were not accepted in their lifetimes, but now Orthodox Judaism has just kind of become this amalgamation and compilation of all the rabbis, and they're just almost like, just stick with your own. Like we're all just the rabbis anyway. Let's just make a big cholent out of all this. Mix it all together and pretend
well,
it's.
What's interesting is that I was explaining this to Elijah Yassi on my stream earlier. I was saying, like, yeah, in the Jewish community, they'll tell you things like, oh, the Jews don't believe in hell like Christians do, but you have early Jewish writings that talk about hell the same way that Christians talk about hell, with like purgatorial aspects and all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is those rabbis at that time, all the way up into and including Maimonides, would say that if you do not confess belief in the resurrection of the dead, you're a heretic. And you have no portion in the world to come, and you can't be with other Jews, and you can't read from the Torah, and you can't be in any communities. He's putting that in categories of people that you should push in pits and like wait for them to die. Whereas today, you could be an Orthodox Jew and go to your synagogue, right? And you'll get called up for Aliyah, and you can be the chazan, and you can, you can sponsor the kiddush, and you can be a part of the whole thing, and you get married in the Jewish community, and you could be basically an atheist, let alone not believing in the resurrection of the dead. Oh, as long as you're doing the things that are the things that you have to do, it's okay.
By the way, it comes down to vocal criticism, right? because that's really where they draw the line. It's like the minute you open your mouth in public and actually dispute them, that's where you're completely out. But people that are in the community, I've had many conversations with people who are deeply entrenched in the community who have zero faith in God. Forget about the resurrection of the dead. Just don't believe
Right.
in God. They don't believe in the Torah. They're following it for communal reasons, and they openly say so. And they're just too afraid to say what they believe out loud, because if they did, then there'd be a problem. So it's really just a shut up culture at the end of the day. And the threat is, if you open your mouth, you're not part of this community. And it's like, okay, well then I guess I'm not, right? And to me, what's concerning, and I talked to the Orthodox rabbi about this, is the community of Israel is not supposed to be defined by Orthodox Judaism. It's supposed to be defined by people who follow the Torah and observe the Torah as is given in the first covenant to Israel. Should be the definition of the community of Israel. From a Torah perspective, I understand. From a Christian perspective, that's different. But they're not doing that. They're saying what defines a Jew is someone who's approved by the rabbis, right? So that's just so limiting, and it really just shuts out pretty much anyone who's not a rabbinic Jew. But then you have Jews that are complete atheists, who, as long as you're ethnically Jewish, now suddenly every Jew has a place in the world to come and welcome. We're here to just massage your ego and make you feel good because you're a Jew. You have a free Aliyah ticket to Israel. Come be a privileged citizen because your last name is Steinblum or something. It's like, that's not Torah theology at all.
Somebody in the chat says 2 apostates and 1 puppeteer.
Yeah, I saw that. it's pretty funny.
It's kind
Oh
of
my god.
like it's kind of. I don't mean this in a derogatory sense. I mean this in like a clinical sense. That's retarded.
So clinically. So Chris,
I don't mean that to be like as a pejorative. I mean,
one second,
like, that
Chris,
makes
does
no sense.
that make you a puppeteer, Chris?
I guess so, yeah. I don't know how, but yeah.
I thought I was a puppeteer. He's trying to sow division.
Unbelievable. Well,
No,
he
I've never apostated. Well, I guess I apostated from atheism, but
You can do that.
Yeah.
You can be an atheist apostate.
I'm an atheist apostate. I'm a based theist.
If you leave the new atheists, you are an apostate.
Pretty
you're
much.
a traitor. You're a traitor.
We're all apostates. Yep.
You silly theist, you.
God cannot be real. It's scientifically proven.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. This rock became a man.
You know what really works when I ask people about, especially when it comes to like things like the resurrection, right? I've asked several atheists who have, like, this has been like, like thinking moment for them. I was like, if you saw somebody shot in the head, pronounced dead in front of you, put in the morgue, and then you saw them get out of the morgue 3 days later, would you believe in resurrection, or would you immediately presuppose that it has to be some other explanation? And they're all like, well, yeah, I'd probably presuppose that there's some other explanation. I'm like, oh, so even with abundant evidence in front of you, you would still not believe. So it's willfully rejecting evidence at this point. And every one of them has gone, that's a really good point. I never thought about my own thought process that way.
Yeah, also, like, we're making the argument for miracles in the context that a all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful God exists, which means like once you concede that, he can do anything. So it's like, well, that's not natural. Yeah. That's not natural. It's like, or that's not something that I've witnessed, therefore it's impossible. It's like, well, you've witnessed enough. First of all, like, life itself is miraculous enough. And the fact that in your tiny lifespan, in this particular time in history, in the particular place in the world you find yourself, you haven't witnessed something like this, therefore it's impossible. I mean, like, again, if we're talking about an all-powerful God, anything's possible. So, making an argument to like just like sit there and laugh at miracles, it's like, well, yeah, it's only stupid to believe in miracles if you don't believe that there is any powerful, higher power.
Right. Yeah, you have to believe in 2 miracles to even be an atheist. You have to believe everything came from nothing. You have to believe life came from non-life. Those are 2 miracles that are like evidentially impossible. So like, if you think that the laws of physics and chemistry are intrinsic to matter, then the expansion of the universe from a single point can't have happened. You basically have to say that the laws of physics didn't exist for a few moments, and then all of a sudden it started to exist. Because if they don't exist at all until the expansion's over, then it's chaos. Nothing happens, and it's nothing. If they exist right at the beginning, then the strong force and the electromagnetic force is too strong, and it can't actually expand outward. There's no way it could get past that point. So you have to turn off your brain and turn off physics in order for the universe to exist at all. But then you can't even explain where the Big Bang came from without a Big Banger. Same with life from non-life. Like life from non-life is an impossibility. I don't even say it's like improbable. It's an impossibility because we have no mechanism to create it, and the world in that early state, if you believe in that state, which I personally don't, but if you believe in that state that it happened, there is no mechanism that exists to make life be able to form because UV would have destroyed whatever was being cooked up in the matter of minutes. So I could give you an infinite amount of time in the early stage of Earth, and you would never get life because it's almost impossible combinatorially, and UV destroys anything that you're making within 15 minutes. So you need an atmosphere to protect life in order for life to exist, but you need life to make the atmosphere. So you have this like chicken and egg problem of life not being possible without God. And it's just the most stupid thing you can be as an atheist.
Yeah.
Well,
we found it. Yeah.
I mean, there's stupider things like that I see in the chat. This idea. So I know Israel disagrees with this, but not for the same reasons. The claim that you'll hear from Orthodox Jews who practice Orthodox Rabbinic Judaism is that Jesus is the false prophet of Deuteronomy 13 or whatever it is, but we'll concede he did all those miracles, and we'll concede, right? There's concessions that they'll make that Israel, for example, won't make about the New Testament claims, right? But then, so the question I always have is, well, why did you believe God at Sinai? Well, he revealed himself in all these miracles. Okay. So if somebody else did those same miracles and greater, would you? But that's a false prophet. It's not a prophet. It's somebody doing literally the works of God. That's the claim, right? We're not talking about somebody prophesying and leading you astray.
Right. It's like forgiving sin.
Do you believe those claims or not? Right.
Right.
But if you're going to concede the claims that he performed the miracles of God, you've already lost, because why believe them at Sinai and not when Jesus did them?
Right.
Yeah. And again, I mean, pretty much after the fact, God is saying, a new prophet who comes and says, worship another God and change the law. That's pretty much the qualification of a false prophet. So that would be the question, whether Jesus fits that description. And I think you can read it both ways. So I think there's a way you can read Jesus in which he's harmonious with the Torah, and then there's a way you can read it where it's antithetical. So I would rather harmonize it.
Right, but the other thing is, you'd have to find somewhere where Jesus is telling people to worship another God other than the God of Israel.
I mean, he tells Satan, you should not worship any God but one, right? So he's clearly referring back to that same God, right?
Right.
He refers to his Father, to his God. He says, keep the commandments. So that's certainly a good way to harmonize it. Where's the proof that atheists exist?
Where's the proof that atheists exist? Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And basically the claim would be, well, Jesus claims people should worship him, but he also claims to be the God of Israel. So you get both. But
yeah, Deuteronomy is pretty clear that it's a prophet telling you to worship other gods.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a very, very specific thing that it's claiming.
Right. You're saying Jesus is not a prophet.
One, he's not a prophet, and two, he's not telling you to worship a God other than the God of Israel. So there's no qualification under which he falls under Deuteronomy 13.
Right. Because he is God and he's claiming worship of himself. Yeah.
Right. Then you'd have to
just be a different
ascertain whether or not he is doing the acts of God or not. Right. Because that's the only way you can.
And if there's any evidence for his truthfulness, which we'd point to the resurrection. So,
Well, there's that. That's
Self-resurrection is a
yeah.
pretty extreme one.
There's that story where he's healing the sick and everything, and then the Pharisees are like, "Oh, you're doing this with the devil's power," and he's like, "Well,
right.
why would the devil do works against himself, right? Like if I
Correct.
was serving the devil, I'd be doing devilish works, but if I'm doing God's work, then I'm serving God, right? So, you know, I even read in Acts the other day where I think was it Peter, he was preaching to the Jews saying like, you know, God sent his son to do the acts of God, to help those in need, to heal people, and like to take care of the unfortunate, and to do good. Like that's a sign that it's from God if it's to do good. God is good.
Mm.
God is sending his son to do good in the world. That's not inherently in opposition with the Torah. You know, I just take issue more with like the worship of the Son as opposed to worship of the Father, and I get it that it comes into that conversation of them being the same thing.
Right.
But again, from the Torah itself, God is only referred to as a father. So if I'm operating strictly off of the Torah, the term father is how we refer to Yahweh, and you know Yahweh's never referred to as the Son. In fact, biblically
Right.
in the Old Testament, the Son of God always refers to not God, right? So
Yeah, except possibly Psalm 2 and Proverbs 30. But then you'd have to debate on if bar means son there, if it's actually Aramaic and that
yeah,
whole
but
thing.
in
Yeah.
Proverbs 30, it's not saying the Son is God himself. It's saying who knows God
Right.
and who
Just
knows
he
the
has
Son.
a son. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that God has a son doesn't make the Son God. You know. So I just prefer to err on. I mean, I guess like for you think it erring on the safe side is, you know,
To accept
worshiping to
Jesus.
accept
Right.
Jesus. For me, erring on the
Yeah.
safe side is to just pray to Yahweh. And if you're
What's
right,
really funny
I'm
is that
praying to the right God
Shabbos,
anyway.
like this is
Yeah.
why Israel's stance is at least intellectually honest compared to the rabbis, even if we disagree with him. The reason is this: Shabbos Kestenbaum on Sean McDowell was like, "Yeah, the bar for getting into heaven and being good with God in the afterlife is so low in Judaism. Like it's fine." Whereas Christianity has this like, well, you're kind of screwed if you don't believe, and it's like, what are you talking about? That's
What?
not the Bible is very, very
No, no,
extreme
no.
on who is part of a covenant with God.
Well, that guy's so
Right.
incoherent. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's just brainwashed by yeshiva. He's only quoting rabbinic literature. He actually doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well,
And
he's not even quoting the rabbinic literature well.
well, yeah,
Um,
not even. He's quoting like new age, modern palatable Judaism, where we just appeal to every modern sensibility and pretend that Judaism is a representation of what everyone's just
he's
comfortable
like,
with.
yeah, the
Of course.
Lubavitch Rebbe probably was the Messiah for that generation, but now he's dead. And so, what do you mean he probably was the Messiah for that generation? How can you make that claim like that? Like,
Yeah,
what a
it's wild.
wild claim.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, no.
I
All
still
of the
think
other
yeah, I still think that the best proof for the divinity of the Son of Man is the Daniel thing. When you showed me that, that's like a I don't know what the hell that's about, but that's for sure like Son of
that's what
Man.
Jesus claimed of himself too,
Mhm.
which is wild. So Jesus never called himself the Son of God. He calls himself the Son of Man like 42 times. So he is, and then he's doing it while also doing things that we would consider to be of God, like forgiving sin and healing the lame and the deaf and the exorcising demons and walking on water and doing all like in walking on waters of Job, I believe 8:9 or 9:8, where it's like only Yahweh treads the deep of the sea, which is pretty base that then Jesus treads the deep of the Sea of Galilee.
The
But
Lord
you
of the
have
Sabbath, Lord of the
yeah,
Sabbath, right? Mhm.
yeah, the Son of Man is the Lord of Sabbath. So it's like he's making all these high Christology claims, like he's like basically claiming to be God, while also calling himself to be the Son of Man. And whenever he's in the courtroom scene in Matthew 14:62, 63, he's like, "Are you the Son of the Blessed One?" And he says, "I am," which might be alluding to like Isaiah 48:12, which is the I
And
am He.
Exodus.
Yeah, and Exodus, but even the Greek there is more akin with the Isaiah passage than is the Exodus passage.
What's
Either
the
way, it's a divinity
passage?
claim.
What's the passage in Isaiah?
Isaiah 48:12 through 16.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only idea of like the supreme leader who has dominion over all the peoples is the Shiloh character, in Genesis.
Mm.
That's the idea. Like this character Shiloh, which by the way, Shiloh means the one who brings tranquility, has the obedience of all the peoples under him. So I mean, other than that, there's like nothing in the Torah that really is clear, and even then, it's still pretty vague. But again, like I'm just of the opinion that Deuteronomy 18:22, if a prophecy is true, let it happen, and we'll know. So
Right.
like I'm
Then you
open
would
to
test
whatever is
the
true.
prophecies for Jesus and see if there's any of them that actually came true. Yeah.
Yeah, and will come true. Because
Right.
sorry, can you repeat
And
the
there's
Isaiah source again? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Isaiah
in
48. I can
Exodus,
bring it up.
it's ego Amy.
It's Ego and me, yeah. Exodus is Ego and me Hoan. And then some of the other passages with the I am statements. If you read out them, so in Hebrew, I can actually
Because
remove that and then
the
show
in
it.
Hebrew, interesting, the eheye is I will be. So the I
Yeah,
am is
I am
technically
he. Yeah.
not a great
Right.
translation.
So it's not perfect there, but he still uses it, which is interesting. Because if I bring this up to stage, go to Isaiah
Well, Israel,
48:12,
what would I am be in Hebrew? Present tense.
the Eoshaya.
No,
Or
I
oh,
mean,
you
what
mean
if
just
it
as
was
like a
in
single
present?
statement?
There is. What would the present tense be for I am?
Um, well,
Anihu, I guess.
aha, anihu is I am he.
Yeah,
You could say like aha. That's technically, but you're right. It's not there.
There
The
is no
high,
real present form of
right.
that.
yeah. Like I
Even
mean,
the he like to
Yehovah. It would be,
be.
yeah. It would be like Eheveh, right? Ehovah, like
Yeah,
Yehovah. So Ehovah, I guess.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
Yehovah is
Uh,
he shall be present, and Ahovah is I am present, something like that.
mhm.
So
Yeah. This passage in the Greek is I am the first, I am the last. So it's like I'm the Alpha and the Omega. So the language of Revelation is being used here. But it's I am he, I am the first, I am the last. Also, my hand founded the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens. So this is like obviously Yahweh. And when I call to them, they stand together, assemble all of you and hear who among them has declared these things. Yahweh loves him. He will carry out his good pleasure on Babylon. So it's again like othering Yahweh about who's speaking, and his arm will be against the Chaldeans. Even I have spoken. Indeed, I have called him. I have brought him, and he will make his ways successful. Draw near to me, hear this. From the first, I have not spoken in secret. From the time it took place, I was there. So now, Lord Yahweh has sent me and his spirit. So the speaker here seems to be the speaker of verse 12, where it is, I am the first, I'm the last, I'm the maker, I'm the stretcher of the heavens. So it seems to be Yahweh speaking, and yet it's Yahweh Adonai who is sending him along with the Ruach. So like it kind of has like this Trinitarian formula, but Jesus seems to be applying that of himself in the courtroom where he says, I am he, and you will see the Son of Man, so the Daniel 7, seated at the right hand of power, which is a variety of passages. Psalm 110 is the one I'm thinking of immediately. Coming in the clouds of heaven, and that has like 7 passages, but only Yahweh comes in the clouds of heaven. So Jesus is making like 4 or 5 divinity claims all in one sentence, and the whole Sanhedrin condemns him as worthy of death for blasphemy, for claiming to be God.
They understood
So
that he was
Jesus,
coming to be God.
they understood immediately it was claiming to be God. Yeah. So that's why I think Jesus is quoting of himself is that type of passage. And then there's other I am passages where the grammar of the Greek, which is Greek is a bit finicky, where you can say the same sentence like hundreds of ways and it's still valid. And that breaks my brain because it's an inflective language. So there's one Greek scholar that came up with like 700 ways to say John loves Mary in Greek and it be valid, which is just so strange to me. It's not even like using the different words for love in Greek. It's all just the 3 words if you just want to use agape for all of it. And there's still like hundreds of ways to just say John loves Mary. So the fact that the New Testament quotation of the Old Testament whenever Jesus is speaking matches
Very direct.
Isaiah closer than it matches Exodus 3:14 might be that he's quoting the Exodus passages. But even if he is, so if he was saying like Anihu instead of like Aya Shaya or just Aya, that might still be like, yeah, Anihu, like who is the Anihu? And if he's quoting Isaiah, then he adds in Daniel 7, Psalm 110, and then all of the coming on the clouds passages. Yeah.
so again, can you tell me the chapter and verse in Isaiah? I'm trying to find it.
For the
48,
person in the
12.
chat saying the Gospels are written hundreds of
48.
years after the life of Jesus, it's like
So stupid.
how idiotic do you have to be, just from a historical perspective, but also just logically. If the temple had been destroyed when the Gospels were
Hundreds of
written,
years.
you don't think they would have mentioned that as a fake prophecy to put in?
You know, we have like P52 that's in the 1st century, right?
They would have made up as if they had predicted the exact date and time of the destruction of the temple with the details of the people. And they would have been like,
Right.
see, we predicted this because
Right.
sacrifice will end. There would be so much that they would add there to validate the claim. It doesn't make sense.
That's so
All four
stupid.
Gospels have to be originally before the destruction in 70 AD.
Okay, so also here's a very, very, very quick and simple to understand argument for the early writing of the Gospels. We know when Paul wrote 1 Corinthians, Paul wrote that in 52 AD. He quoted Luke. That would indicate that Luke was written before 52 AD.
Yeah.
Because how do you quote something that didn't exist? Then obviously Luke is written after at least Matthew, if not Mark as well. So then you have Matthew, Mark, and Luke written before 52 AD, and he wrote Acts after he wrote Luke, and he finished Acts before Paul died, and Peter died, which is in the 60s AD. So you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Acts all between or before 60 AD. So what are you on about? That's so ahistoric.
The
It's
only thing that would
amazing.
be after the destruction of the temple would be Revelation.
Yeah, even then there's debate, but yeah, that would be it.
And I
'Cause
mean,
John itself,
ironically,
Just because even history of the church could theoretically place it then.
Right.
The
You could
Mishnah-
place it around 66.
the Mishnah wasn't written until like 200 years after, something 200.
Yeah, and then the
Right.
Midrashim of the time are making claims like, we have to write down the oral Torah so that people will know who the real Israel is. So that the Greek-speaking Gentiles stole the Torah. It's like, that's a bit of a self-incriminating claim.
Yeah, no, they wrote it as a response to Christianity, clearly.
Yeah, obviously
Right.
a lot of the practices predate Christianity, but that doesn't mean their claims to authority and history and predate Christianity.
Right. Yeah.
By the way,
of
I'm working on
course.
a store and my first shirt is made up already, mocked up. It has it says True Israel on the top, and on one side it says rabbis, and on the other side it says apostles, and under apostles it says Peter, Jew, Paul, Jew, Simon, Jew, James, Jew, and on the other side it says Rabbi Akiva, Goy, Meir, Goy, Onkelos, Goy, Shmaya, Goy, Avtalion, Goy.
Wow. It's all been
Oh.
inverted, huh? Everything's
Yeah.
everything's upside down.
Yeah.
It's a strange
All of the New
world for
Testament
sure.
was written by a Jew except one book, or possibly two books. Like all of the New Testament was written by Jews, for Jews to believe in a Jewish Messiah
so the
and the
exception of
Jewish
Luke.
God, except Luke. So he wrote Luke and Acts, and even then, I think he was half Jew, or no, that was Timothy. Timothy was the half Jew. Luke is the only Gentile we know of that wrote anything in the New Testament.
He's a historian, comrade, traveler of
Right.
Paul's.
Right.
Well, I've been told by an Orthodox rabbi, he said, like, if we just go based off of the Bible, then how are we different than the Christians? I mean, they have the Bible, we have the Bible, so how are we different than the Christians? I was like, well, what's the problem? Like, oh no, now we're gonna have more in common. Like we have to now come up with 17,000 books in order to differentiate ourselves from the Christians. It's like, man, like that's clearly not well intentioned.
I mean,
And
you
why
can
do
just
they
see
hate Christians so much?
You can just see the distortions that have to go on even within Orthodox Judaism to justify whatever stance it is they're holding for that century. So now, like, Tuvia Singer will be like, yes, the worst, because he's going on a live stream with Muslims, so he has to go, yes, shirk or shituf is the worst form of idolatry. It's like, no, buddy, that was created as a category to distinguish Christians from other forms of non-Jewish beliefs that you could in fact do business with and trade with because they're not actually pagan idolaters. It's a lessened issue, and he's Ashkenazi. That's from the Ramah, so that's, to be like on a stream with Muslims, this is the worst form of idolatry. It's like, that's just not true even according to Jewish orthodoxy.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do a good job pointing out how rabbinic literature um, has a lot in common with Christian literature. Um,
Yeah.
and they pretend it's so foreign, but they're actually the originators. I mean, even the whole idea of like messianic obsession is a rabbinic idea, or like making messianism such a central theme of religion. That's a Jewish idea created by like the Jews of
Yeah, I
Israel.
mean, what would Greek speaking pagans do with the Messiah otherwise if it didn't come from Jews?
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's
What the
literally a
hell do they care
Jew.
about those things?
It's all taking place with the Jews in Israel. I mean, it's remarkable, really.
Yeah. But even the idea of Messiah ben David having his name or like written on the throne of God and having his light under the throne of God and like illuminating the world. That's kind of a crazy statement to just be like very casual
You're
about
not
it.
even getting the half of it. His light is eternally present under the throne of God,
His light is
but he has a
eternal.
conversation. That light has a conversation, so that's entirely consistent with the idea that the Logos is the eternal
Right.
Son, who's then incarnate in time as the Messiah,
Right.
right? But not only that, Satan is like, "What's that light under your throne, God?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the Messiah that's going to cast me into hell." What?
Where does
What
it
do you?
say this in the
The
Talmud?
Sikha Rabati.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not even, and that's not even like that's like post Maimonides. Besikta Rabati is a late midrash. So at best, as an Orthodox Jew, what you could say is Christianity infiltrated Judaism and concocted these stories in rabbinic literature. But then you'd have to throw out all of rabbinic literature because you don't know what's concocted by Christians and what's not.
Uh, Chris, you have no idea. I made a video on this. I made an hour-long video on Isaiah 53 and going through all the divine Messiah stuff and the sources and then
I
read them
wasn't
on
quoting
stream.
Kabbalistic ideas. I was quoting midrash.
Right.
So, by the way, I was just reading Isaiah 48.
Hey, man.
That source. He seems to be talking about himself as well. Isaiah talking about himself as the one who's
Oh, yeah.
coming in the name of
And
God with his spirit.
14 or 15? Yeah.
Yeah. He's saying, I am speaking and being called with the Spirit of God. So, I mean, Isaiah talks about himself being anointed by God, and he has like this word in him that needs to come out. So, I mean,
Mhm.
that's definitely, I think, another way to read it. But I
Yeah.
think it's clear that in the New Testament, I don't think like Jesus is claiming that those things were about him. They were clearly about what was happening then. He's just saying that it's those themes and those types, those archetypes are foreshadowing him coming later on. It's not that the Passover lamb was Jesus. It was a Passover lamb. He's just saying that the concept is, coming to refer to him in a later time. Whether it's coming in like Moses, coming like Isaiah, right? He's coming in that tradition, as he puts it. Um, so again, I would love to find a way to harmonize all of this. Even to harmonize rabbinic literature to the extent that like if we can agree on the fundamental principles, I think we'd be a lot better off than if we all believed we were all heretics who have to put each other to death. You know, that's not really going to advance much further.
Yeah. Well, Christianity doesn't technically say that. That was more so a Catholic thing in history. Not right now. They have since changed their ways, but there was a solid stance of a couple hundred years where there was a lot of bloodshed for no reason. But that's not really a Christian thing that you have to go out and kill heretics because God had mercy on all of us. So therefore, we can have mercy on each other because none of us deserve
Yeah,
salvation. None of us deserve the
Charles
afterlife.
Martel is not hero of the Catholic Church. Yes, canonized the saint. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I point out from an Israelite perspective, the laws of the Torah are enforced within the land itself. It's not some sort of global conquest, killing people by the sword. It's something that happens internally within the people that everyone who lives there agrees to live by these terms. And these terms are not rabbinic Judaism. It's what's explicit in the Torah. What's not explicit in the Torah, by definition, cannot be executed with the certainty of like death penalty, right? Like the only time there's death penalty is like you spell out the name Yahweh and then you blaspheme, right? Or like you explicitly worship other gods, or you make it clear that, that's what you're doing. But when it's not explicit, you can't go ahead and start giving out the death penalty for that.
Right. It's where
You
judges and
you want
prophets come
anything
in.
really cool? Speaking of heretics and how the church treats them, Israel, did you know that Santa Claus, like the actual Saint
Yeah.
Nicholas, you know what he did with the heretic at the council?
Gave them cookies and milk.
Punched him in the face. He punched
Punched him.
Arius right in the face.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
Santa
so-
Claus
So here's
punched
the thing.
a
So
heretic.
Santa Claus,
It's great.
real name Saint Nicholas, was opposed to the heretic Arius, and it's not clear if it's true if he punched him in the face or not. All we know is that the minutes of the council say that he was given basically like a timeout for some scuffle that had happened. So we assume he punched Arius in the face.
Mhm. Well,
Uh,
I guess he repented and became a holly jolly man.
we ate a lot of cookies and milk. Yeah. Doesn't keep kosher.
No, that's why he
Wow.
doesn't ever eat the cookies, because he does keep kosher.
Oh, true. Yeah.
They might have snuck some pork fat in the cookies, right? It needs a
You
rabbinic
laugh, but-
certification.
You laugh, but there was this bar in the Shuk in Jerusalem called, I forget which one it was. It might have been Beer Bazaar or the other one. Anyways, one of them had this like cookie that they would make that was like cooked with beef tallow instead of butter, because it's a
Mhm.
Fleishik restaurant.
Hmm.
So they make the cookie with beef tallow instead of butter. Pretty epic.
It wasn't pork though.
No, it wasn't pork.
Okay. Well, I mean,
It might have been
Yes, you
pork. You know, kashrus in Israel is kind of a joke.
yeah.
Wait, it's a joke everywhere.
Yeah, I recall a butcher in LA was serving horse meat at one point. A kosher butcher was discovered to be serving horse meat to people.
Isn't that not kosher?
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
they don't
So
have the split hooves.
yeah, no,
yeah.
it's not kosher. He was claiming that it was cow meat, and he was serving horse
Ah,
meat
man.
to the Jewish community.
So
Yeah.
when I stopped keeping kosher, I was still living in Israel at the time, and I started getting like while I was out at work doing security East Jerusalem, right? I would just stop and get shawarma at like one of the like Arab places in East Jerusalem, and somebody was telling me, you know, not even a kosher thing. You shouldn't buy food there because you don't know if because it's not kosher. You don't know if it's camel meat. I'm like, the shit are you talking about? You think that they're lying and using camel meat? You know how freaking expensive that would be?
Hmm.
You know how
Yeah.
how insane that would be? You know how pissed off people would be?
Yeah, of course. It's not even
Uh,
beneficial for them.
I live in Quebec and many grocery stores here sell horse meat. That is wild to me.
It's crazy.
I've heard nothing but bad things about eating horse. Like it's just tough and not enjoyable whatsoever. 'Cause
I
there's
imagine
muscle.
Yeah, I imagine they would label it as such though. In a you know, they don't have an incentive to lie because beef meat's not that much more expensive, but kosher beef meat, as we were discussing earlier, that's so expensive that it serves someone to actually lie to have something else. So
You can sell it for a markup. Yeah.
What are you talking about? You can't
Well,
trust
I'm-
the goyim.
what?
You trust the
You
goyim.
can't trust the goyim.
Yeah, we had a guy here arguing earlier that you can't eat meat that was slaughtered by a non-Jew because the Torah says slaughter from your cattle and your sheep, so yours and not the goyim. Right? So, okay, sure.
Yeah, no.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think
There's all
it's good
sorts of.
that, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was gonna say it's good that we have the same Bible. We can all start reading from Genesis, and like it's clear ultimately what we need to do to serve God correctly, and the rest we leave up to Him.
Right. We can all appreciate that the Torah is the most important book in history, and that it's super based. That its morality is a miracle, and that its theology is perfect. And then then I would say that it then develops into the new covenant.
Did,
but,
did you
it's-
change your name to
little
Ginger Goy?
I may have, yes.
That's hilarious.
That was my name on the stream yesterday as I was going through like Genesis 2 and 3. Uh, No, I came up with whenever I came up with the Talmud dilemma, I changed my name to Chris Nye, the Talmud Goy, for multiple streams, just going through the Talmud. It was great.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
then someone clipped that, and then I got interviewed on another channel, and the headline was just Chris Nye, the Talmud Goy. So he introduced me as Chris Nye, and I was like, that's obviously a Bill Nye joke, but he just didn't get it because he was from the fake country west of Israel, and but he grew up in it, and he came to America, and he lived in California. He's a really cool dude. I just don't really think Palestine is a country. So we were talking about it. I was like, my name's not actually Chris Nye, right? He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, it's a joke. It's like a kid's show. There's a thing. He's like, oh, so what is your name? And I was like, it's Chris Harvey. He's like, oh. So then he didn't change it though. He just left it as Chris Nye the entire time. So his audience just thought I was a different person entirely. But yeah. I'm
That's
also
funny.
Semitically challenged. That's another way to describe myself. I'm Semitically challenged.
Semitically challenged.
So
Yeah.
so are most Jews apparently.
Well, just the important ones. Yeah.
I mean,
They're all
you
goy.
don't look like features and hair color, like you don't look that different from like half the people in New Square.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Most
I
Jews
mean,
are
you're not.
Semitically challenged.
I mean, you obviously are not inbred, and that would be a significant difference. But
Thanks. Appreciate that.
like hair color and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been told I had a Jew nose my entire life. And then I started making videos praising the Torah and explaining the Torah. And then I started going through Hebrew, and then everyone just started calling me a Jew all the time. And then I got accused by Muslims that I was a Jew for every single, like, oh, you're not a Jew because like they saw my cross. I'm like, no, I'm not a Jew. I don't even think I'm ethnically Jewish. Uh, but it's just wild how much hate there is for Jews that even someone who I think I'm a Gentile, but even someone who is not a Jew, didn't grow up in a Jewish household, not practicing Judaism, if I just even look remotely Jewish, I got so much extra hate on top of everything. Even when I was just saying like benign things like, hey, don't do incest.
Oh,
I think that's pretty
Controversial.
reasonable. Right. Yeah. Controversial take, but
somebody in the chat said at least they call us goyim and not shkatzim. I was like,
Yes.
well, I've been called a shagitz.
Yeah.
You know, when the first time I ever got called a shagitz in my life was, I went to I've been out of Israel too long. Manny's, like the bookstore in Gula.
Yeah.
Right.
Been there.
So I'm going to literally pick up a copy of one of them, like a Masechet of Talmud, right? Like one of the tractates of the Talmud, to go buy a copy to take to my base with me in my army uniform. And a bunch of Haredi kids started throwing stuff at me and calling me a shagitz
Oh, because you're protecting them? Got
because
it.
I was wearing my uniform.
Yeah. No, they have a lot of hatred for the people that are protecting their lives.
I'm literally
That
going
is
to
so
buy a
dumb.
Gemara.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of shame there because they're too cowardly to actually go fight, and they claim that by them studying Talmud all day, they're somehow doing a greater service to the country than people that are laying down their lives.
So my uncle, who's like really Haredi, or he was really passed away a few months ago, but he fought in Lebanon 1. All right, so he went to the army. All right, but as far as he was concerned, none of his kids or grandkids should go to the army. Like he was like super Haredi, and he tried to explain to me once. He's like, when Haredi people do go to the army, they make the best soldiers. They're so smart and they're so amazing and they're so wonderful and they're so great at everything. I was like, I called him uncle, so I'm not going to say his name, but I was like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, there are like Haredi people who like serve with me in the army, and they're incompetent. They're completely, not all of them. There are some that are great.
Well, I mean, that's what they say. They say like, oh, because they
generally
study
incompetent.
Talmud, because they study Talmud, they're so good at problem solving, so they make great lawyers. I mean, no, of course. I mean, these people probably never lifted more than 10 pounds in their lives. They all have scoliosis because they're bent over reading Talmud all day. And, they've never faced anything at all. So, of course, they're incompetent. I mean, that's the lie. I mean, they lied to themselves. It's very sad. And by the way, the word shegets means a detestable, abhorrent creature, and it's used to refer to rodents, especially in the Gemara. They say shkatzim v'ramasim, which means disgusting, creeping creatures. And that's what they call non-Jews, abhorrent. And what's funny is I made a video where I said someone called my wife a shiksa because she's not Jewish. And I said, you're calling my wife a rodent, so you're disgusting. You're calling a human being a rodent. And the comments were like, it doesn't actually mean a rodent. It means an abhorrent, detestable creature. I was like, okay, it's fine. It's
Makes
fine,
it so
man.
much better. Yeah, that's so much better.
All good now.
Yeah, no, the Quran calls Jews and Christians the lowest of all creatures, like the most detestable of created things. So we're actually lower than like worms and trees and plants, like all that stuff. So like we are the lowest of lows. So everyone here on stream, Ash double so because he's eating two of them. So we're all the lowest of the lows, and that I think that's just stolen from the rabbis in general, because everything is stolen from the rabbis in Islam. But
Yeah, the difference
no,
is
they do that too.
I'll just to play devil's advocate here. The difference between rabbis saying that and Muslims saying that is Muslims are like in charge of the places they're in charge of and will literally go marauding and massacring your village. Jews
Sure.
are like the rabbis saying that stuff are like have no power
Classist.
at all, are just kind of like sitting
Right.
around moping about the fact that they don't have any real power or control over everything. And it's like people that have like everything's gone to shit and they're just like whining about everything and they don't have any control over their own lives even.
Yeah, but then the concern is what happens when they do get in power. I mean, you see things like
Yeah.
the Jews and the
Well,
government
even
of
on a small
Israel.
scale.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you see even like now the Jews and the government of Israel, they're like, nuke them all, Amalek, Goyim, and it's like, okay, like where did that come from? You're right. It's
Has
all
anyone
part.
has anyone explained to Ben Gvir the ramifications to Israel of nuking Gaza?
No, he's a retarded Orthodox Jew. I mean, what he just it's all hyperbole.
Wouldn't that also just destroy Israel because of all the fallout?
Of
That's what
course,
I'm saying, like,
Gaza's
that-
like 5
Terrible
minutes
idea.
away.
Terrible idea. Right. Like it's
The whole
literally
Israel's
there.
the size of New
Yeah.
Jersey. I mean, it's insane. I mean,
Can't you just see
not to mention
all of Gaza from like the mountaintops? Like you could like in like Jerusalem, like on the mountaintops of Jerusalem, can't you just see down into the shore?
of course, not to mention the concern of murdering 2 million people in Gaza. But let's just
Right. Yeah.
it's
But
Amalek. It's the
Yeah.
Goyim. It's like
if you can see the land you're nuking, you shouldn't nuke it. It's just like a good rule of thumb, I think.
also if there's millions of innocent people there, you probably shouldn't nuke it either.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Although there is a very interesting prophecy in, I believe, Zechariah that talks about how people will waste away on their feet while looking at something, and it's the Jews that are going to do this. So there's a debate on whether or not that's like talking about nuclear warfare, that the Jews will launch a nuke against one of their neighbors, and then it'll make world peace with the region. That's interesting because the idea is like it talks about how their eyes wasted away, then their tongue wasted away, then their like head to toes wasted away while they were standing on their feet. So these are people that are like dissolving while they're standing. And in a nuclear blast, the light melts your eyes first, it dries out your mouth and then melts your tongue, and then it melts the rest of you. So if you're at a certain distance away from a nuclear blast and you're getting all of the particles that are hitting you, you actually die the way the Bible describes a little bit. Now, it also talks about it as a disease, as a pestilence that kills animals too. So who knows if it is being like metaphorical and it actually means a nuke?
Yeah, I don't
or
know
if
if
it's just like
I don't know if we want
Right.
to self-fulfill that prophecy. I think
correct.
might
Yeah,
be,
you don't necessarily want to nuke your neighbor,
you might
but
want to let
if
it
it-
serve as a warning more than a.
it's true. If it does happen, though, if Israel were to happen to nuke someone, technically that you could make that into a prophecy from Zechariah. Little weird fun fact for you for the day. But and if that does happen, it should bring peace, which is also interesting to think about.
Hey guys, I'm about to eat a bagel. Do I get my Jew card back?
It's that easy. They always come crawling back. That's what they take pride in that.
You know what? Some of the comments I've had in response to me on my channel are so stupid that it would like if I ate a bagel on a live stream, somebody would literally, not ironically, say, "Look, he's coming back. Look."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, or if you say that there's like one thing from rabbinic Judaism you like, they'll be like, "Well, how could you say that if you don't agree with everything the rabbis say?" Well,
I agree
suppose,
with things from the Talmud. Eating little
yeah.
fish, they're good for your eyes.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's all I got.
I agree with some stuff from the Quran, like, hey, men shouldn't lust after women. Then, all the times it then allows you to lust after women. But there's like one sentence in the Quran, I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea.
As long as
The
you're not
pastor
crossing 7 rivers with a bag of dinars.
to go to a prostitute. Yes.
Oh my God, that story is
Oh man.
it's one of a kind. Now I recall that
remember-
when
It's gonna be burned in my
when I
mind now.
when I heard that story in yeshiva, I heard it as it wasn't rated R like that. They would just tell us like he was such a terrible man. He would go all across the world to do sins because we were like young kids. They didn't want to tell us all about the prostitutes. So I got the adult version today. It's great.
I remember when I first learned that. So I hadn't learned Masechet Avodah Zarah like in my teen and young adult years. I actually started learning that while I was working in security in East Jerusalem. And so on our night shifts, it was pretty quiet. So I would sit and study. And I was sitting there like with another guy that I'm on the shift with, and he's like watching YouTube videos on his phone. And I'm learning Gemara, and I get to that part, and I just remember looking up at him like, I wonder how funny he would find this right now.
It's got to be more interesting than a YouTube short right now.
Yeah, and he was like secular, like Tel Avivi guy that like had no idea about anything to do with the Talmud or Gemara, and I'm like, nah, it's probably gonna make Orthodox Jews look really bad, just out of context for other that.
Back when you were trying to make Orthodox Jews look good. Huh?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Well,
one of my favorites is the demon hyenas. Like the whole demonology within rabbinic Judaism is just really funny. Same with the witchcraft and all the superstition. But the male hyenas becoming female hyenas, becoming bats, becoming a fruit bat, becoming a thorn, becoming a thistle, becoming a demon, like that arc of life is so funny to me. And even the fact that anyone would actually treat that as like not a Gedic, but actually like real is just, I don't understand. Because that's so tested, like you can test it. And it's, man, there's so many stories
well, I
there.
mean, yeah, that's the whole point of all like the rabbinic mysticism. It's unprovable. They're making unverifiable claims about the nature of reality, and they're expecting us to just buy it because they said so. Like, that's not a good enough reason, you know. Like,
So when I learned that in Bava Kama, I remember asking Rabbi David Shochet, who was the Rosh Beit Din of our city, and who was the rabbi, like the main rabbi of our shul. I remember going up to him and asking, like, "Hey, is this meant to be literal?" And he's like, "Yes, it's literal." I'm like, so that's it? That's the answer?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, so I'm not asking you any questions anymore." I'm done with that. And then I asked a guy who was like a teacher in one of the yeshivas, who was like a rebbe there, and I asked him, and he's like, "Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that in the Gemara. I think you guys," he's like, "I'm pretty sure the rabbi is answering sarcastically to a super stupid question. Like that's more likely what it is." I'm like, I don't know, because he
Yeah.
seems pretty serious about it.
yeah, but I mean, as you pointed out, their opinion changes by the day. You know, one day it's literal, the next day it's metaphorical. I mean, Maimonides even says that the Garden of Eden and the angels appearing to Abraham is metaphorical. So, I mean, these people, they can't get their story right, and you know they're contradicting constantly. But yet these and those are the words of the living God, and somehow all this makes sense together, but it just doesn't, and it's ultimately harmful. And the rabbis who are saying such absurd things, a lot of like rational rabbis like to differentiate between agada, which is the stories, and then the halacha, which is the law. And it's like, if someone has such insane ideas about the nature of God and the nature of reality, what makes you think he's suddenly going to turn into such a rational person when he talks about law, right? Like these things are intertwined, and they try to split hairs with that, but it's not going to work.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Like, how in the world can you trust the halakha if the Agidic is so out there and stupid sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, clearly
Yeah,
these people,
there's only one coherent rabbi in the modern era who has a coherent thought process, and that is Yosef Mizrahi. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
this
Um,
is not the case.
this is not the case, but I just remember him hearing something. Somebody asked him, like, why is mixed dancing, like men and women dancing together at a wedding, such a bad thing? Like, come on, it's the 21st century. Why is this not okay? And he's like, you know why? Because one avera like this is lead to all the averot. He says, first thing is you go and he's mixed dancing, and next thing abortion. Like,
Yeah.
somewhat coherent.
Yeah, well, to me, the problem is like if you have mixed dancing, it would be couples together. So that's obviously not a problem. Husbands and wives dancing together. And then single men and women, like if a single man asks a woman to dance, like that doesn't mean they're going to start making an abortion baby. It means they'll start dating, in the context of parental supervision at an event where there are parents and adults in the room. So there's no actual negative aspect to that. But I just saw a clip of him he's saying, Christians are worse than atheists because atheists, at least they admit there's no God, but Christians, they make a New Testament, so they're worse. Oh my God! So Christians are worse than atheists. Oh, there you go.
I mean, he also said that secular Jews are worse than Yahya Sinwar.
Okay, that's kind of funny. Yeah,
I'm not even kidding.
I guess. Yeah, eating pork is as
Isn't
bad
that the
as
butcher? Isn't like the butcher of Hezbollah?
yeah,
Somewhere?
It's the head
of Hamas. Of
who
Hamas.
masterminded
Hamas. Oh
October
man.
7th.
Yeah.
I mean, this like the
Wicked,
worse
dude.
and yeah, this is worse. This is better. Like good things are good, bad things are bad. Like we could just.
He's the only rabbi that the ADL has ever gone after. He said that the Holocaust was a punishment for secularism in the Jewish world.
It's funny.
And yeah.
Oh. Painful, man. Absolutely painful.
He also said that
Okay.
hurricane, what was it, the big one in New York, like about 10 years ago? There was like a really bad hurricane that killed a bunch of like Jewish people in like Long Island and Brooklyn as well. I mean, I'm specifically mentioning the Jews here because of what he said about it, but I'm pretty sure he said it's because of all the gay Jews in New York.
Nice. Well, I've heard rabbis say that when tragedies happen to the community, it's because the married woman didn't cover their hair.
Yeah, there's that one also.
Well, that's a stupid one because that's not a commandment.
Or if you have sex sideways, that also makes your baby come out retarded or squinty-eyed.
Is that
I
in the
kid you
Talmud?
not. That's in the Talmud. If you have sex in the improper position, your kid will come out either retarded, squinty-eyed, have a limp, or he'll die, or he'll be like susceptible to demons.
If you have doggy style, your child will be a dog. I mean, what doesn't it say in the Talmud?
Actually, there's a really funny one in the Talmud for doggy style.
If the woman releases her seed first.
Oh yeah.
The rabbis thought the woman.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They say if a woman releases her seed first, then it's a boy, and if the man releases his seed first, it's a girl.
Which is stolen in Islam, by the way. Anyway, yeah, the two Siemens theory is hilarious. There's a funny one for doggy style.
Rabbi, my husband, I laid a table before him.
Yes, and he flipped it over.
Wait, what is that?
So there's a woman complaining about her husband to another rabbi, and she comes up to him. I think it's Rabbi Abba, Poppy, and she goes up to him. And he's like, "Hey, I prepared this beautiful table before him." So talking about like her body on her back, and then she complains and says, "And he just flipped the table over." So like instead of like having face to face, you just and then she was very, very upset about it. And then the rabbi responds with, "It's allowed. What can I say? It's allowed." So there is some interpretation that was either doggy style or anal. Then they also use another one for the spilling of the seed with Judah's sons, and the reason why he didn't spill the seed is because he did anal, and that actually allowed the intercourse to happen, which is and it not be sin in that way. So there's like actually you can make a case that sodomy is fine. Then there's all the other cases where sodomy is obviously not fine according to the rabbis. So there's like contradictory views
Well,
within that.
to me, the part that stands out the most is that a woman is going to the rabbi over something that happened between her and her husband in the
Her
bedroom,
husband,
right? And
yeah,
that's the symptom,
right.
the larger problem here, which is, something's happening in the intimate space between you and your husband, and the place to go is the rabbi, right? So it's like,
Yep.
that's just gross. And it's
Yeah.
immoral. It's immoral because rabbis are, being intimate with married women. There's a rabbi who I know that literally just committed adultery, with a married woman. That's what ends up happening because these
I
women
know
just
3 of those.
3 of those, Mazel tov, and then
I
they get
also know
married.
some
And then
rab-
they get
I
married
also know
after.
I also know one that committed I guess you don't call it adultery, but with little boys. So there's that
Mm,
also.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
men of
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
All right.
Whenever you
Well,
give people power, they'll be corrupted by it. But is there any closing thoughts either of you have since we've been going for a while?
Don't do drugs. Don't stay in school.
exactly, exactly. Get married. Don't stay in school. Exactly.
Homeschool for the win.
Don't go to school for like 6 hours at night. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's
Get married.
crazy? I've been told recently by like school educators, like people that work at schools and developing curriculums and things like that. Like, oh, good for you homeschooling. That's probably better.
Of course. Oh, you mean your child's not going to be taken from you for all hours of the day, where they're supervised by a complete stranger who's ill-equipped in a classroom of 40 other children who no one knows who they are?
Yeah, my children
Yeah.
will be educated by my wife and I, and they will not be alone with anyone else but one of us until they're old enough to understand how to defend themselves and protect themselves.
But how are they going to learn the ABCs?
Well, they know their ABC. I mean, my
Do
oldest
you
two
do
do.
you do you and your wife know how to teach 5-year-olds? Come on. You need
My
you
my
need someone with a
4-year-old
teaching degree to do that.
my 4-year-old can sing songs in English, Hebrew, and Greek.
Based.
Of course. Of course.
Well, his Hebrew's
Yeah.
not as good, but I should be working more on that because that's my forte.
That's your department.
That's
Well,
my
yeah,
department.
amen.
But
Amen.
the thing is that I've been learning to sing songs in Greek, so that's why he's learning to sing the songs in Greek.
Mhm.
But
Well, I agree. Get
Based.
married, have children, follow God and no one else. The word is clear, and start improving yourself today.
Absolutely.
somebody asked, are you Orthodox Jews or Christians? There's a Karaite adjacent. There's an not evangelical. You're non-denominational, right?
Evangelical is like a broad term that, like, you can technically be an evangelical Catholic. It's just, are you actually preaching the gospel to people? Is what evangelicals is anyway.
Right.
I'm non-denominational. I just observe the whole Bible, and I don't subscribe to any specific creeds outside of the foundational creeds of like Pauline creeds, and then a handful of the early creeds like Nicaea and Athanasian, other ones. But
Nicene Constantinople Creed.
yeah.
Yeah, and I am a Catholic catechumen. I was an Orthodox Jew.
Yeah. So that's
All right.
your flavors of the day.
Well, anyway,
So I guess
one more closing thought. Sorry, for Israel will like this. So we in the Byzantine Catholic tradition take fasting during Lent pretty seriously, but the priest makes it very clear to everyone this is a personal spiritual practice. Nobody's mocking you, shaming you, or coming after you if you don't keep the fast like the other people. It's not for salvation. It's not.
it's not an
No.
obligation from God.
Yeah.
It's a practice. Yeah. I mean, the rabbis, I feel
Yeah.
like the rabbis would be so much more successful if they framed their religion that way. I mean, they wouldn't have as many devout followers if they didn't believe it was the word of God, but they would have a much more honest environment of people who were choosing to do these things because they actually wanted to.
right.
Any closing thoughts from the ginger goy?
Yeah, I guess I can recap some of the arguments against the Mishnah real quick, 'cause that was meant to be the main topic of the stream. So basically, it was lost during Josiah for generations. Therefore, if the written's lost, the oral is probably lost as well. The Deuteronomy says not to change it or add to it. And then you also have there is no such thing as the Sanhedrin before the Sanhedrin actually existed, which was hundreds of years after they said that it existed. There's no evidence for the Great Assembly. The kings went to prophets and managed things with judges. It was not a Sanhedrin. It was not a court. And it was not centralized. And it was, there's a bunch of different kings that had a bunch of different approaches, but none of them are what rabbinic Judaism has to have happen in order to establish their authority or establish the lineage back to Sinai. There's contradictory reports in Sinai with the law, and the law says that everything was written down in Deuteronomy, and therefore there's nothing outside what was written down in the Torah that was actually from Sinai. Yeah. I think that's about everything. You probably throw in some extra things, but yeah. Mishnah,
Awesome.
I don't think it has any single chance of actually coming from Sinai.
Not
Then the actual
historically,
chain of
not
narration is
textually. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And it comes back to like not historically, not textually, not logically. So what's the proof?
Right.
So
The day the Torah was translated into Greek was like the day of the golden calf.
the day the Goyim found out the truth, that's the day we stopped being I don't know. We stopped
so
being able
ironic.
to lie.
Right.
Ay.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Awesome.
thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Ash and Israel, for joining me. Thank you, Israel, for reaching out and setting this up. It was great. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Well, great to talk to you guys, and God bless. Have a wonderful night. All right. Bye-bye.
Good night. Then may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit with you always. Bye. Shalom.